The top-ranked player in the world with the nickname Loki, known as the creator of the game's mechanics, faced a fateful day today, the day he was brought into the very game he was so proud of. I am Momon, a professional mercenary. Do you guys know where this is? And I am Lai, the owner of a carpentry workshop in Adora. I also don't know where this is. I am Chris, an employee at the antique shop Hanshi. My name is Jenna, a forest dweller. I don't know what's going on, and I just know that suddenly I was transported here. Finally, here is the farmer Haneslat, who we will follow throughout the journey. All 11 of them knew nothing about each other and were summoned here without knowing why. However, one thing is quite certain that anyone can guess surely someone has summoned them here, like a wizard for example. And as everyone predicted, right after an elf appeared and called everyone to prepare for battle, she looks cute. But actually, this is a demon disguised as an angel. Because as soon as the mercenary Momon showed a disrespectful attitude, he was immediately sent to meet his doom. Now you understand. Isol, the manager, is the law here. Right after that, when the time gate opened, Isol quickly turned towards everyone and called out everyone inside. Of course, with Isol's gentle gaze, surely no one would refuse, as Momon's body was still warm. At this moment, our Islat finally had the chance to show off. He stood up and said, "Isn't it funny to let a bunch of commoners with nothing but rags into the tower? We should at least give us some decent equipment." Though it seemed quite troublesome, those words were extremely persuasive. So immediately after that, Isol had to equip the remaining 10 people. Now there was no reason for them to stay outside anymore, so the 10 people, whether farmers, workers, disabled veterans, all entered the time gate. The first group consisted of 5 people, called Team 1, which Yisel sent in first, and as predicted, just a few seconds later, there was an announcement. The entire Team 1 has been wiped out. Though Yisel was furious, there were still 5 people remaining, so the 5 members of the main team continued to march inside the time gate. However, don't worry. With Islat's trustworthy face like this, he must have experienced this many times already. Right after stepping through the timeless gate, in front of everyone was a completely new world, naturally waiting for them. A group of monsters. This time seemed to be a difficult battle ahead, but does anyone wonder why Haneslat is in this monster place? His real name should be Seo Jin. And as for this world, it all started with that game, the game called Pick Me Up, a mobile game released by the Mobilis Corporation, which has reached 1 million players worldwide. The game content is simple. Players just need to successfully break the 100-floor tower. No matter what dirty tricks you use, just clear the tower and the game will end. Obviously, Seo Jin is a devotee of this game. An ordinary young man, to put it mildly. Even in the game, he never managed to summon a 7-star hero. But Pick Me Up is a game with character tiers. Heroes are summoned with ranks ranging from 1 to 7 stars. Perhaps you think this game is quite ordinary, but the intriguing part is its harsh rule. Unlike character-building games, when a player's hero in Pick Me Up dies, it disappears completely, meaning that even a 7-star hero will return to 0 if that character dies. Returning to Han, at this moment, the game suddenly announced 38 team members of his were in danger. One by one, each member of the team fell down without any apparent reason. In fact, there was a reason. A level 999 monster was slaughtering the entire team. But level 999, could this be a game glitch? Right after that system error looked straight at Han, a sinister smile appeared on his face. Could something in the game defeat Han? The answer might come when you press like and subscribe to Adonis Recap. Ha ha ha. Just a few seconds later, Han was met with character creation notifications from Pick Me Up. This time, the character created was none other than Haneslat. Every hero had one mission, to climb that tower and push back the mysterious enemies. The sounds and images were so real that Han couldn't believe his ears and even that goblin. Han knew for sure that if he didn't defeat it, he would be the one to die. So there was only one thing that could explain this. He was in Pick Me Up. At the same time, the goblin guiding mission was defeated. New notifications appeared that the master, controlling the character Islat, was summoning a new character. Along with that powerful beam of light, a new hero was summoned right before Han's eyes. A 4-star hero Shai successfully summoned by the master, possessing the strength of a knight and perfect stats. Comparing a farmer like Han to a star is like night and day. Right after using her overpowering skills, Shay quickly defeated 5 goblins in the blink of an eye. It's easy to understand because the difference between the two characters is 3 stars, not to mention the unique skills of the knight hero, and now the final instructions have been revealed. The way to make a hero stronger is to synthesize, and that room is where heroes are synthesized. With that sound, Han knows once he enters, either he or Shay will become a sacrifice for the other. When hero Islat didn't enter the upgrade room, but the master's command made manager Isel show up. However, before the introduction, the other person knew his name as Lysel was a bit surprised. She checked the character information and found out this person is not the real Islat. Han Islat is a farmer born in the town of Taon on the Hem Peninsula, so where did this person really come from? After knowing Han is from Earth, Isel panicked and exclaimed, "How could this happen?" Well, never mind. Let's figure it out later. First of all, just go inside. With those words, Han was quickly kicked inside the synthesis room, and once both heroes were present, the synthesis process was quickly conducted. As it is known that synthesis is a way to increase power by combining the two heroes together. During this process, one of the heroes will be destroyed, and what Han is sure of is that no foolish master would choose a hero like him. Meaning Seo Jin only has a few seconds left before becoming a sacrifice for Shai. But in life, who knows what to expect? After the synthesis process is completed, the person who must disappear into the light is none other than the Knight Shai. This is indeed somewhat unreasonable, but what can be known? Simply because the chosen one is him, that's how things are. That's all that happened to Seo Jin before being summoned to the first floor, the tower. Although not knowing whether the player chose him by accident or because of his foolishness, it is thanks to him that he has the chance to survive in this world. And one more thing Han knows for sure is that the captured monster is the one who brought him here. Like this time, you messed with the wrong person. That's how the first battle on the first floor of the hero Seo Jin was completed with the loss of an arm. Although the pain is real, everything will be okay when returning to the waiting room. After all, Pick Me Up is a game where the master doesn't have much say in battles. Most fights will take place automatically by the heroes in the game, however. What makes it attract over 100 million players is the observation feature, where they can observe this world as a god, where their characters will become the ones to have fun. As for Han, he's just an average player with heroes who have never reached 7 stars. However, few knew that he once had a master with the nickname Loki, a player ranked 5th in the world, known as the Master of Masters, and he is just a 1-star hero. This time, let's see how I survive. Minutes later, Han was taken back to the waiting room, knowing full well the situation. Typically, heroes only have 2 possible deaths, either dying in battle or suicide. And for a 1-star hero like Han, he truly is hopeless in this game. He is seen as a prop with terrible stats and extremely low development potential. The only way to survive for someone like him is to become stronger, so strong that the master cannot even think of turning him into a combination sacrifice. Every day, Han spends a lot of time practicing, not only in strength, but also in intelligence. He needs to perfect all of his stats. Only then will he have hope of survival and revenge. And today, during his training, there was a surprise guest for Han. A hunter named Jenna, who survived with him in the previous mission, suddenly met him and asked him some questions. She wanted to confirm a few things with Han about this place. A place where he knew well and couldn't survive if he cried like last time. So this time, I want to join forces with you. Jenna said as she shot an arrow and pointed towards Han. At that moment, Han only noticed Jenna. He saw her as a goal-oriented person. Even though she was just a 1-star character, clearly she was a rough diamond that could be polished. With those thoughts, Han quickly took Jenna's hand. From now on, they became a team. Shortly after finishing the conversation with Jenna, Han called out loudly, "Isel, come out." The small manager appeared and Han asked, "Am I the only one who can see game information, including the stats above her head?" Despite Isel's objections, a sweat-dripping expression when lying betrayed her. Now Han was certain that he was the only one who could see game notifications and master messages. Thinking, Han looked at manager Isel and asked, "What will happen if master leaves the game? I have not received any instructions from the master in the past few days." Han asked this question to determine the thoughts of that master, whatever combining a 4-star knight only had a 1% chance of happening, and a 1-star farmer was definitely not a normal coincidence. Something must have happened that he did not log in for the past week. Having thought about it, Han once again asked Isel, "Is the time in here different from that on Earth?" And as usual, even though Hessel did not speak, her face once again silently admitted. Thus, the second useful information had been gathered that the time between the 2 worlds is different. And the reason Isel was getting angry and couldn't do anything is because of the rules of the game. Elves are not allowed to touch heroes. They can only punish when they disobey the master's command. After this question and answer session, Jenna turned to Han and asked, and then she was thoroughly explained by him for heroes to the master that they needed to conquer the 100-story tower to leave this place. Moreover, masters could also use money to summon others, though it was very difficult, but ultimately, their fate still depended on the master's decision. As more days passed, Han realized some rules in this game world that essential items like food regenerate every day. If he thought about something he wanted, it would immediately appear in the wardrobe the next day, and of course, things like guns would not appear. In addition, there were rules when obtained from training. Things that, when still a master, Han never understood. Now became clear the reason why 2 heroes of the same level had different combat abilities. Training not only increased stats or levels, but also enhanced the skills and recovery of heroes. If a master had skills, they would categorize heroes into three main types. First is intellect. Masters would never bother with those easily panicked in combat. Second is skills. A high-ranking hero would be summoned along with special skills, while most low-ranking heroes had hidden skills that the master had to discover by themselves. And lastly, physical group, the group of heroes that Han aimed for at this moment. 3 days had passed, and finally the master had reconnected. With the rigorous training before, Han reached level 5 with 2 new skills acquired along with increased basic stats. After receiving a notification from the game, Han realized that the master wanted to summon new heroes, forming a team of 5 people which he needed to summon at least 3 times. Immediately after, 3 new individuals stood before Han and Jenna, Aaron, To, and Jisun, all 1-star heroes. Before they could even catch their breath, Jenna signaled them to move forward. We need to pass through the dungeon. Meanwhile, on the other side, the spatial crack had opened with Isil's call. Everyone quickly prepared for battle, and just like before, the 3 newbies didn't understand what was happening and cursed at Isil. This time, it seemed like they were less fierce and more understanding. As predicted, shortly after entering the tower, the 3 were beaten up, but thankfully they didn't lose their lives. Now they bid farewell to Isil with a smile that resembled death. A few seconds later, Han's group of 5 were summoned to the 2nd floor, tasked with dominating the target and clearing out the enemies. Similar to the 1st floor, the monsters on this floor were wolves and goblins, but they were much higher in level compared to the ones below. As predicted, the 3 soldiers were extremely panicked when they saw this scene. All indicators were currently down by 30%. However, there was something special. Han could sense that even Jenna was feeling scared. This was strange because she hadn't shown any sign of fear before. After thinking, Han approached Jenna and inquired about her health. Although this move made Jenna's heart skip a beat, it also successfully helped her escape the panic. As to the other 3 people, Han knew for sure that he couldn't rely on them anymore. This time, it would probably be only the 2 of them who would complete the mission. Afterwards, Han and Jenna clearly divided their tasks. He would be responsible for eliminating the wolves, while the remaining 2 goblins were Jenna's responsibility. A few minutes later, all of Han's wolves had been completely wiped out. Jenna seemed to have also taken down the 2 goblins with her arrows. Surely, after this time, she had become a true archer. In this way, the team successfully overcame the challenge on the 2nd floor. Despite this, the atmosphere here was not very cheerful, as ultimately only 2 people were truly risking their lives in battle. However, while everyone was still feeling dejected, something happened that made all 5 of them look in surprise, as could this sound be them being summoned to the 3rd floor. If the master was a daredevil, this could definitely happen. However, just a few seconds after the master's logout notification, Han felt somewhat relieved. Now finally I can rest. Moreover, with his superior intellect, Han quickly deduced the time difference between here and Earth. If his guess was correct, the master would punish 1 layer each day, meaning time in this world would be 1/3 slower than the outside world. Surely the master would log back in after 3 more days if calculated in this world. At this moment, Han looked at the 1-star guys over there and had some thoughts. He wondered, is there a difference in the thoughts of 1-star heroes and higher ranked ones? Clearly, Shai knows what she was summoned, seemingly trained for combat beforehand. Lost in thought, one of the 3 then approached to ask Han a few questions, but looking at Han's face, can you tell that he will answer or not? Faced with Han's attitude, the guy blushed and got angry, giving him a beating. But you picked the wrong person, now you understand who the boss is here, don't you? Now, the following days, as usual, Han and Jenna continued training. After basic exercises, Han also started weapon training. Achievements have been made. Han's shield and sword skills have combined into a new skill, Shield and Sword Awakening. As for the other 3, they did not come to this training ground. They walked around trying to find a way out, but of course still could not find it. Han knew that the other 3 would soon be expelled by the master. 3 days had passed, the familiar announcement appeared again. Master has logged in to pick me up. Come to the square now if you don't want to be punished. Aisel pointed at the 5 people while speaking as usual. The other 3 were beaten severely for disrespecting the elf. Now do you understand the issue? Hurry up and perform the master's task. On the 3rd floor, the monsters were still the same group as before, but their equipment had become much stronger. Hannah noticed that he and Jenna were progressing. Another massacre occurred as on the 2 floors below. Within a few minutes, the task of clearing the monsters on the 3rd floor was completed, with MVP being the archer Jenna. The other 3 still did not participate in the battle as usual, but Han didn't care. They did not participate, so the 2 of them received more experience in defeating monsters. While chatting, a new task was assigned. This time, 5 people were summoned to the 1st floor. It seems that this time the master wants to level them up. He is quite clever and not very merciful. Until both exhausted, they were brought back to the waiting hall. Seeing Jenna's angry face towards the other three, Han said, "Everything will soon end." At the same time with his words, they were transferred to the assembly room, and when the door of this room opened, the fate of the three guys was determined. Those who do not seize the opportunities given will become a stepping stone for others. In the real world, the Master is watching the battle of the previous heroes very clearly, knowing who fought in the front line and who was lazy. Following Isel's instructions, the first two to enter were Jenna and Jisun. As predicted, the lazy Jisun became a sacrifice. After stepping outside, Jenna received a new skill named Elegance. She asked Han, "What happened in there?" And he explained in detail that the useless ones had to die to sacrifice for others. Tove and Aaron were shocked by these words. If they had known earlier, they wouldn't have fallen into this situation. However, all things considered, everything was already too late. Along with Isil's pointing gesture, the ones entering the general room this time were Tove and Han. Obviously, only one person could come out from there, and that person was none other than Han Seo Jin. While walking past Aaron, Han did not forget to offer a few comforting words, saying he's very lucky. These words were indeed meant to be comforting, but why did they feel like the whisper of death? Nearby, Jenna, sweating profusely, asked Han, "Will there be a day when I end up like them? Will I be sacrificed if I become useless?" In response, Han calmly said, "You will be fine. We only have two ways to die, sacrifice like now or die while fighting monsters. If you want to live, just do as your father said, stay close to the strong ones." The next day was still a training session like every other day. However, what was with Jenna's respectful attitude? She explained, "Didn't you say to stay close to the strong ones? And you are truly a strong person, so please take care of me." However, that is not the most important thing today. When a person speaks, a different sound resonates. This time, Aaron also wants to join the two people. He is very sorry for his previous actions in the tower and hopes to be forgiven. After hearing those sincere words, Han did not hesitate to throw a staff to Aaron. He explained the staff is the easiest weapon to use. Furthermore, now the group has close combat and long-range combat. Using a staff for mid-range combat is the most effective. Despite Han's explanation, he continued to point the sword towards him and prepared for battle. Facing this, Aaron was bewildered. "You didn't teach me, but you want me to fight." While he was still a fawn in headlights, Han quickly rushed towards him. Isn't the best way to learn in the midst of a real fight, so try to learn as best as you can. What happened? Next is self-explanatory. Aaron was beaten until he vomited green and yellow bile. Behind, Jenna wondered, isn't this a bit harsh for the first time with him? Han clarified his point of view. "I don't need useless people. Those who can't keep up with me will be ignored." Then Han turned to ask Aaron, "Do you have a family?" And he found out that he had a younger sister waiting for him. "So what will happen if you don't return?" Han asked while the sword was placed on Aaron's neck. "Dying at the hands of a monster will be much more painful. Or should you let yourself be swallowed up?" Before those words, it seems that Aaron's thoughts have changed. This time his spirit in his eyes seems better. At the same time, when everyone finished talking, the forge was also built with 500 coins from the master's pocket. This is a weapons appendix, where heroes can craft and upgrade their weapons. Facing this scene, Han immediately called the manager Isel out. Obviously, his arrogant tone made this lady very angry, but unfortunately, due to the rules of the game, she couldn't do anything against our male lead. At this moment, he asked Isel, "Are you the one who sent tips to Master Watererite? Surely you can go online as well?" In response, Isel said she learned from a post online, first summoning items 10 times, then unlocking the training base, and finally unlocking the forge. It was not until now that Han said, "Next is Master Loki's post." A post is extremely popular on the Pick Me Up website. It turns out that Isel is a passionate fan of the player Loki. She began to talk about Loki's skill. He is the master of all masters. If he had a 7-star hero, he would definitely be the top in the world. Just then, Han scoffed at Isel. Surely someone as useless as you can only wander around these lower levels. However, the response from Elf at this moment was truly earth-shattering, as I am Loki. Of course, in the face of such contempt from a lowly person like Han, Isel did not believe at all, thinking he was trying to deceive her. But when Han read out the details of her account, Isel was astonished because the security of player account information was only known to the server and the account owner. It seemed illogical, but if that was the case, there was no other way. "Please, Lord Loki, give me your signature now. With this, I will be a VIP member of Loki's fan club." Only then did Han wonder, what is Ragna Loki? It turned out to be a forum for fans of Master Loki, and in order to become a VIP member of this club, one needed Loki's signature. It was then that Isel suddenly remembered an important thing. If Master Loki was here, what would happen to Niflheim? This was also what Han was questioning, as Niflheim was the name of Loki's account waiting room system, with 13 levels capable of holding up to 20,000 people. But what good would it do if its master was here? Isol became frightened at this point, as if Loki was here, were the 20,000 people trapped in there. Even though this was beyond the capabilities of a small manager like her, specialized in trivial tasks. At this moment, Han continued to ask Isol about this world. Is the owner of this waiting room, Master Water from Earth, and are the heroes the ones who are truly summoned? Isol's answer then explained everything, that Master Water is indeed a player from Earth, but he does not know that the heroes in the game are actually humans, meaning that there could be up to 100 million worlds like this existing. The Mobius system, which created countless characters with artificial intelligence, is essentially a lie. The heroes are actually the humans summoned, and every action of the Master is a direct command that can kill a person in the world they are observing. Now everything is clear. Han is sure that the system has made a mistake with Jenna. A genius like her can't possibly be a hero. On the contrary, Eren is truly useless. With his attitude, he will sooner or later meet his end. With that in mind, Han called Jenna to follow him to the warehouse, already busy with unfinished tasks. But on the way, the two girls, Isol and Jenna, kept arguing, thinking it was a big matter. It turns out they were competing for the #1 position under Han. A while later, the three finally arrived at the warehouse. As soon as they entered, Han told Isol to quickly bring out the forge because they can't keep using the rusty sword. The reason Han could give orders was because after the conversation with Isol earlier, he realized he was half a master and half a hero, meaning now Han could completely invade the territory of other masters. Inside the warehouse, weapon manufacturing had already begun. However, there was a challenging issue. Han was lacking too many materials. Although he could continue refining, the success rate would be very low. With the experience of an old master, Han knew what he needed to do. He chose to manually refine a method that almost no master used because of its difficulty. However, the rewards, if successful, were substantial, and then the 3-minute countdown began. With his superior skills, Han quickly pieced together all the broken pieces in front of Isol's excited gaze. In just a minute, the entire broken pieces of the sword were perfectly connected. The refined sword had been successfully crafted. Although only at rank C level, it was a superior item compared to the raw materials expended. Following that were actions like before, continuously creating swords and shields quickly. Although all of them were at rank C, but isn't it better that way? If the weapons were too outstanding, it would attract the attention of that master. The next day, it had been 3 days since the last time the master logged in. As predicted, this time the three of them were sent to conquer the 4th floor of the tower. It seemed that the monsters on this floor were at a completely different level. While the three were still unprepared, the monsters began to rush towards them. The first to panic at this scene was Eren. He was so scared that he continuously waged his innocent weapon without knowing whether it was effective or not. At this rate, the team's formation would soon be broken. Luckily, Jenna immediately gave Eren a slap to help him regain his composure, stop panicking, and focus on the battle. When the three restored their formation, everything started to go more smoothly. Soon after, the mission to clear the monsters on the 4th floor was completed. However, Eren still had a worry from the previous mission. He felt that he didn't stand out at all. Maybe he would become a sacrifice when he returned to the Master. Just as Eren finished speaking, a new announcement from the Master appeared, dispelling his worries. The hero Eren was added to the favorites list. Beside Eren's happy face, Jenna couldn't help but be excited as she said to Han, "It seems like your #2 subordinate has grown up." Upon hearing Jenna's joke, Han immediately left without saying a word, because he had no subordinates here. To be more precise, Loki's #1 subordinate is Cyrus of Niflheim. Of the 5 members on Team 1, they are Loki's strongest heroes equipped with legendary gear he crafted himself. In addition, each of them possesses several top-notch skills, all at 6 stars and level 99. Han believed that if he climbed the tower, he would one day meet them. As for the Niflheim domain, since it is an automatic game, the hero Sirius, who holds the position of Vice Master, would probably manage things on his own. If not, Juliet would still be there. The two heroes were so intelligent that Han once wondered if they were artificial intelligence. At that moment, in Loki's controlled domain Niflheim, Cyrus and Juliet were having a conversation. It seemed like team leader Cyrus was preparing to investigate news about his master, while Niflheim would temporarily be under Juliet's management. Back in Master Water's domain where Han lived, a significant transformation was taking place. Countless conveniences sprang up from eyries to training grounds. Everything that existed before had been upgraded, and what did not exist was built anew entirely. This change surprised Jenna and Eren. Could the Master truly be an ultimate wizard? Only Han knew when it truly happened. All of these magical things are from Water's money pocket. He must be enjoying the battles of the heroes, that's why he's spending money like crazy. While thinking, Isel appears with a pile of money that Master Water just deposited. After the discussion, they guess that guy is an office worker. He has a fixed playtime and even some game deposit money, which is good. This is a blood-sucking game, so depositing money is extremely important. Just then, a new announcement appears. Master just summoned 10 new heroes. Will there be any fierce characters this time? Basically, there are 2 ways to summon and pick me up. Summon using earned gold, also known as normal summoning, and summoning using gems, a higher level summoning with a currency unit agreed upon when Master deposits into the game. A few seconds later, the 10 new characters have been successfully summoned. They don't seem to have anyone outstanding among them. Then, with a sword in hand, Han quickly shows his power and demands everyone to obey him. That's just a joke. Actually, he and Yisel are dividing the tasks for them. All non-combatants will be assigned to areas within the domain, while the system also announces waiting rooms are changing. This means the Master is dividing teams to classify the useless people, all of whom will be sent to the first floor. Only those who can adapt and return have hope of surviving in the waiting room. A few minutes later, each announcement sound echoed, signaling that someone had fallen inside the tower. As of now, there have been 2 casualties. Amidst the chaos of the new group, Eren wants to advance into the tower with them. He tells manager Isel, I want to join Team 3 and attack the monster. Of course, this is entirely possible, as in an automated game, heroes often want to show their abilities to the Master. With the Master's approval, Eren and his team enter the dungeon. Meanwhile, Han just hopes that the young man won't die easily despite all the effort put into training. While everyone is facing life and death in there, Jenna complains about her stomach, cursing the Master for giving her potatoes every day and nothing else. At this very moment, the bright sky signaled that the Supreme Being was watching as Jenna almost fainted. Naturally, her complaints were all relayed to the Master after being transformed into more palatable words. About an hour later, Eren's group successfully returned to the domain without losing any more members. Looking at the luxurious dining area that excited the other 2, perhaps this was the first time in days they had eaten something other than potatoes. It certainly did not disappoint. The young man claiming to be the chef made potatoes even worse than I could boil them. Han glanced over and saw that this guy's information had nothing to do with being a chef. But the important thing was, could it be that out of over 10 people here, none had cooking skills? Thinking, he approached the girl named Louise and asked, can you cook? Hearing that, the young man on the other side was puzzled, thinking he was the chef, so where would he go now? And so, Han played stupid and said, I know you're lying, but because it's your first time, I'll let it slide. A while later, the final dish was served, and although it was still potatoes, it was completely different from the charred black ones before. Although the chef position of this domain has already been filled, Han also stated that everything was clearly to everyone who was summoned here. 2 people in charge of logistics will be Chloe and Enoch. One will be the chef, and the other will be the carpenter, however. He also added that although doing logistics safely, one should not be subjective. There are only a certain number of positions, so when someone is summoned with better talent, everyone may have to continue fighting. After neatly dividing the tasks, the next boring days still occur as usual. This time, in addition to the young man Eren, there are 3 more kids. They are Zid, Hansen, and Dika in turn. Of course, these 3 young boys have to be knocked down with a difference of up to 8 digits. They are no different from adults to children. Even Jenna's archery skills are progressing every day, currently reaching level 5. Proficiency with short swords are at level 2. Eren's diplomacy has also reached level 2, although slightly slow, but with perseverance, skills, and basic stats have also increased significantly. Finally, the 3 newcomers, although only practicing, can be seen that their fighting spirit is very good, at least still better than the cowardly gang. A few days later, there were more waves of new summons from the Master, most of them being teenagers, so managing them together with Eren and the 3 kids seemed to be okay. With the bustling scene in front of them, Jen asked Han, why does the Master let all of us advance to the 5th floor? Aren't our forces very strong already? Besides, the 4th floor has been cleared for quite a while. Before that question, Han just wanted to answer it quickly, so he said, perhaps the lineup is still not determined. In the following days, the team was constantly sent to train on floors 1 to 4. Although this new trio didn't have any outstanding points, the week also had the way of the week. That is through arranging the defensive formation and using the strength of the whole group instead of one individual excelling. As for Han, he never fought. Because if an outstanding person like him got involved, the others would not have a chance to train anymore. A while later, finally, the 4th floor was also cleared with Jenna as the MVP. It seems that soon the team would have the opportunity to advance to the 5th floor. Currently, the master of this domain is playing more and more. In the second round of 10 spins, he received a blacksmith and a leatherworker to activate the pawn shop. The trio of the blacksmith, carpenter, and leatherworker were able to combine to create equipment. Although most of them were in rank E, they helped the new heroes increase their chances of survival. Meanwhile, Han's main team received higher level equipment. Another group of 3 poorly performing fighters were merged together. They were the ones who never bothered to go to practice and always tried to escape. This group naturally included Dolph, who had lied about his extraordinary abilities. A few days passed, and this time the whole team finally had the opportunity to move up to a new level. However, before they left, Han reminded everyone, be extremely careful at this level. The hands of any of you could be lost at any moment. With that warning, the team quickly moved to the 5th level, which was a destroyed city. However, they could not see any signs of monsters around, so the team was very worried. At this moment, Han, on a Reconnaissance mission, discovered something strange about this task. With the empty scenery in front of him, he speculated that this might not be a punitive mission. After thinking about it, Han told Jenna to quickly go up to that tower and check it out. Being high up like that would make it easier to observe the situation, just as Han had predicted earlier. The scene in front of Jenna made her somewhat disbelieve her eyes because right outside that wall, there were thousands of goblins rushing towards them. After confirming what Jenna saw was real, Aaron and the others were shocked and asked Han, "Is the system malfunctioning? How can we eradicate all those 1,000 creatures?" And he explained that this was not a punitive task but a survival one. Just need to endure for the specified time. With a clear explanation, the team quickly found ways to survive the monster horde. It was clear that all the houses in this area were inaccessible. The only way to survive was to move. While running away, Aaron wondered, how many hours does the group need to endure? And received Han's answer of 10 minutes. But in reality, the time needed to surpass was much higher, specifically half an hour. Everyone kept running together to find a place to defend. Anyway, these lower floors were famous for being called the hero grinder, where heroes were not strong enough and monsters were too many. A while later, Han found a small alley, although not extremely safe, but this place is the best for defense. Almost all buildings in this area are demolished, so it's very hard to find a better place. Then Han continued to organize the team. Because this alley is very narrow, the monsters will attack in waves. Everyone must do whatever it takes to defend the front. Divide your strength and defend appropriately. And Jenna, you'll stand in the middle of this intersection and shoot when I give the order. After finishing, the group quickly rushed to build a barrier. This will somewhat hold back the goblins for a while, and then the first goblin appeared. The countdown just started. Will Han and his team be able to withstand those thousands of monsters? The result is unknown, but looking at Han's wild face, he seems very excited. Each wave of goblins advancing was like a loop, continuous stabs and blocks, causing the monsters to gradually tire out. However, luckily these monsters are as stupid as they look. Then the young man Aaron, exhausted, asked Han again, "Are you sure the time is 10 minutes right? Have I ever tricked you guys before?" Han answered confidently while killing the monster, but it seems that Aaron misplaced his trust in someone. After the intense attack of the goblin horde, everyone's strength had been greatly worn down. Even Han, with his superior level, felt his stamina waning. It was clear that the rest of the group couldn't hold out much longer, as they would quickly tire from the excessive movement. Contrary to the 5-person group, the monsters swarmed like ants disturbed from their nest. Though they were low-level creatures on the first floor, they were charging recklessly. Han was busy both blocking the monsters and coordinating with Zid and Hansen. The 2 weakest members of the group needed to take turns defending strategically. Jenna, help Zid now, but remember to retrieve your arrows immediately after shooting. With Jenna's arrows joining the fight, Zid and Hansen's side could temporarily hold their ground. However, it was only temporary. Shortly after, Zid exhausted himself and his grip on his bow slipped. Hansen, still not fully recovered, had to step up to replace his friend. Han also had no time to spare. Amidst Zid's panic, he had to set aside one leg to reprimand him. "Snap out of it, you fool! Are you planning to get us all killed? Remember, Hansen will die if you don't switch with him." Although distracted, Han still focused on the most solid direction. He could easily defeat these low-level monsters, even though his speed was no longer as fast as before. In contrast, Hansen was exhausted in front of the dense goblin crowd. Even his sword was completely damaged. At this critical moment, Zid regained his fighting spirit after receiving Jenna's blood. He stood up again to replace his friend Hansen. While Han predicted that these E-grade swords would not last long, but didn't expect they would break so quickly. However, it should remember they still have shields. If they can't use their swords anymore, they should use shields. Now, Jenna should switch places with Aaron. With Han's shout, the other two fought smoothly, but there was still a gap. Hansen and Zid were almost unable to fight anymore, so as Aaron replaced Jenna, Han quickly asked her to support the two of them. "Shoot all the remaining arrows, because if the wings are pierced, we will all die anyway. Despite Jenna's timely support, Sid made a fatal mistake and now his life was in critical condition like never before. Together with Zin's fall, the team's formation was broken. Hansen could not hold out for long against the monsters and started to panic. Even Han was distracted worrying about others. Then when the system announced Zid's death, Han had to take over for Hansen and it was not the time to mourn for teammates. If they did not focus, they would all die, and as usual, in times of difficulty like this, they needed a bit of a power buff from the author. Jenna at this moment awakened a new skill. With fast movement effect, her short sword also reached level 3, while Han saw all of his basic stats increase by 1 point. His shield and sword skills reached level 5. In addition, his resilience and composure increased by 2 levels. Though good news was rare and bad news was abundant. On the other side, after a while of fighting, Hansen finally could not hold on any longer. He began to panic and tremble in fear. However, in this situation, there was nothing else they could do. Even though reluctant, Han had to quickly pull the remaining 2 out of there. Zin and Hansen had no chance of survival, so the 3 needed to return if they still wanted to pay tribute to them. After a while running away, the 3 of them found a new defensive position. Jenna jumped up first. Following Han's command, she quickly climbed up to support the other 2. Eren and Han immediately followed suit. If all went according to plan, they would hold out here until time ran out. However, that was just a dream scenario. To add more drama, the author had the goblin successfully stab Eren's leg as he climbed up. With no other choice, Han once again jumped down to defeat the monster and successfully cut off Eren's injured leg to pull him up. Despite saving Eren's life, he was no longer able to fight. Now, Jenna and Han were in more trouble than ever. They had to figure out a way to hold off the monsters climbing up there in the remaining 30 seconds. It is unknown whether the 3 of them succeeded, but the old script was sure to repeat itself. While busy attacking the monsters below, Han carelessly got hit by a fatal sword. Adding insult to injury, the goblin knew exactly how to torture our main character, spinning the sword and slashing straight across Han's ribs, causing him immense pain. Will he be able to get up again after this blow? At this moment, in his subconscious, Han began to contemplate life. He wondered, will someone like him really die here? This is only the 5th level. Why can a so-called genius like Loki end up losing his life here? And just as the script had planned, he rose up once again in anger. There was no way Seo Jin would die here. If she died, he would die on the 100th floor. With that yell, wave after wave of monsters rushed in and fell down. This time he was determined to bathe in the blood of these wretched goblins. In the seconds that followed along with the screaming pain, Seo Jin was like a wild beast, constantly wielding her sword everywhere. At this moment, every swing of his sword seemed to be instinctual rather than thought out. Even if the sword was shattered, the fight would not stop. Right at the moment when Han was preparing for the final encounter with those monsters, the final countdown began. Death was looming right in front of him, but slowly fading away. In the end, the 3 of them managed to survive the monster attack. At the same time, the system announced, "Congratulations to Master Water for passing the 5th floor. From now on, the dungeon will be unlocked daily, along with rewards including 5,000 gold, 3 iron ores, 2 potions, and 1 plank of wood." In short, the fighting was tough, but the rewards were all junk. If you meet me, I'll delete the game. Returning to Han's group before this scene, the 3 finally could relax a bit. However, Jenna had a question. If level 5 was this difficult, then won't the upper levels be nearly impossible to pass? It was then that Han explained that's because of the game's mechanism. From the start, I should have helped Zid and Hansen more. Surely the system arranged it so that if one person falls, the others will fall as well. A few minutes later, the 3 were summoned back to the domain. However, with this return journey, many probably knew what was about to happen to them. Upon returning to the room, Han immediately lay his face on the bed and reflected on what had happened. Although he felt sorry for Hansen and Zid, Han would never cry over these things. Witnessing the death of teammates was a common occurrence for frontline heroes. Above all, what Han cared about were the new awakening skills. Calmness and madness could not coexist, so this was definitely a system error. As is known, calmness helps heroes maintain their sanity, whereas madness forsakes that in exchange for increased power. The next day, everything went on as usual, but this time Jenna was the first to arrive for training. After inquiring, Han learned that she did not want yesterday's scenario to repeat. Currently, according to Han's assessment, the best developer here is Jenna. Yesterday, she learned many new skills. Combined with her existing talent, Jenna will make remarkable progress. However, as for Eren, despite experiencing many things, he has not learned any skills yet. As for Han, his promotion continues to progress smoothly as usual. His current level is 5, and the goal is to reach level 10, the highest level for 1-star heroes. Shortly after, they continue to discuss Eren's situation. Jenna speculated that he might not show up today because Eren was very close to those 3 kids. As soon as Jenna finished speaking, the main character of the conversation appeared behind. He apologized for being late today, the reason being yesterday's incident. Faced with Aaron's dejected look, Han explained the sacrifice of those two was because they were too weak. It is not the fault of anyone, so just keep training yourself. It has been 1 month since Seo Jin arrived in this world, or 10 days if we count Earth time. Compared to before, he has been able to feel better about this world. When he was still a master, Han used to log into the game 3 times a day to see possible developments. It was through frequent logins like this that he was able to understand each of his characters and make accurate decisions. Back in Domain, Isel is currently excitedly introducing Han's great achievements at level 5. Of course, she also didn't forget to curse a lazy bunch, and above all, a new team has been created. Team 4 consists of Han, Jenna, Louis, Joffrey, and Owen. Quickly enter the space crack as instructed by the master. This time, the place the team arrives at is the everyday dungeon, known to change each time one enters. This place is known as a location to collect materials, causing both curiosity and concern on the others, with Han taking the lead. He begins collecting rocks and tree branches and throwing them into the loot chest, explaining, "This is where we gather materials, feel free to take anything you find useful." Jenna thought this time would finally be an easy job, but no, the task of gathering was for those 3 people. She and Han had to go deep into the forest to hunt. A while after advancing deep into the forest, the two found their first prey. Perhaps this would be the first meat dish after a month of only sweet potatoes for the whole village. Han assigned the task of collecting this monster to Jenna, and he would continue to go even deeper. About 10 minutes later, he finally found the center of this forest. However, there was only over 30 minutes left until the whole group would be summoned back to the domain, so Han had to act quickly. In front of him was Lamb King, an extremely rare monster that only appeared in forest dungeons, and its attribute stone was what Han was aiming for. Han began to rush in, defeating all the monsters surrounding Lamb King, and now the next contestant would be you. A few minutes later, he returned with the biggest spoils in his hand, only bringing back a head. Jenna asked, "Why did you bring this back? It doesn't have much meat, and it doesn't taste good either." Han replied, "Because of its horn, I couldn't cut off the horn, so I brought back its head." Just continue Jenna's work as a surgeon to remove the horn. On Han's hand is the winged attribute stone that fell when defeating the Lamb King. Even though it's only grade D, it can still be used to craft upgraded items for the hero. That night, Domain Water had a more sumptuous feast than ever before. If they counted correctly, it had been a month since they had eaten meat. The next day, the location of the dungeon was Shimio Plateau, a dungeon specializing in collecting attribute stones. This time, only Han and Jenna entered the dungeon. They had to find attribute stones to become stronger. Suddenly, Han discovered something on the other side of the mountain wall. It looked like a tree of life. Han had seen it in a painting. They were the main ingredient to make healing potions. Shortly after, the two successfully found the first monster and quickly defeated the wolf. As usual, Jenna was in charge of collecting items from the wolf, but they had to hurry because more monsters might come due to the scent of blood. Han, after defeating the monster, collected a grade D water attribute stone. While admiring the stone, Jenna started talking more. She wanted to have a life like this every day. If the master didn't log in anymore, this would be paradise forever. Jenna's vague words certainly didn't know that Han was feeling a little hurt because from the beginning he was a master. Han began to think about Jenna's words, wondering if the heroes in Niflheim thought the same. Were they very happy because Master Loki was no longer around? A few days later, Team 1 was sent to conquer the 6th floor with the new member Dika. Their mission on this floor was to explore unfamiliar locations. Han guessed this belonged to the Reconnaissance mission group, one of the rare types of missions. He then ordered everyone to bow down, best not to break the forest's tranquility, but the way these people bowed down was very strange. It was more like lying down than bowing. As they traveled a few dozen meters, they discovered 3 level 8 goblins. Additionally, each goblin had a horn on them, indicating that their allies were nearby. Just as he predicted after observing, Jenna discovered a nearby goblin village with hundreds of monsters. It was as if these 3 were a trap. If they didn't scout carefully and ambushed the 3 goblins, the bitter consequences could not be avoided. After understanding the situation of the enemy and our side, Han began to divide the tasks. Aaron would stab the goblin on the left, Jenna would shoot the goblin sitting on the right, and the remaining goblin would be dealt with by me. As for Dika, he would assist if anything happened. Just as quickly as the 3 were divided the work clearly and quickly finished off the 3 goblins sitting below. It was quite coincidental that as soon as those 3 goblins were defeated, the system announced that the team had passed the stage, meaning that as long as you defeat the 3 monsters without being detected, the mission will become much easier. However, right before being summoned back, Han quickly rushed towards the goblin village, knowing that there would be some clues related to the next level in this dungeon. because the task of exploration is never just a simple task like the previous one. And as soon as Han arrived at the village, when he just glanced over the place, he was summoned back to the domain, as what Han understood when he was still a master. The quest chain usually starts with an exploration quest called the Flow. It is very likely that their group is in this quest called the Flow. Thinking so, Louis, the head chef, hurriedly ran up to Han and said, "There's a big problem. Some strangers have just arrived, and they even brought weapons." The atmosphere around them was very strange. Hearing this, Han knew. Finally, they have arrived. Probably the master has just summoned a high-level hero. However, what is particularly special is the notification from the system. Like the notification, surely these 5 new individuals are all linked to each other from the Mercenaries Guild Wolvos. At this point, Han continued to confirm with Isil. Did the master just use money? Then it was known that indeed he just purchased a beginner summoning package for $50. Hearing this, Han also understood that because the premium summoning package, summoning high-level heroes is also understandable. A few minutes later, Jenna and Han also found someone in the group of new heroes. Through an introduction no less stark than Jenna successfully found out her name was Edis Callan. Han looked at her information and knew she was a 3-star hero with extraordinary thieving abilities, along with some special skills. Just as predicted, as she was a thief, her agility was very high. Then came the direct exchange between Han and Edis. Firstly, you remember how you came here? Edis didn't know about that, but she said she knew she was summoned here to fight. Moreover, she knew the sacrifice of one person to enhance the remaining hero. Before Edis' answer, Han confirms something that the higher the hero, the more information they receive when summoned. However, at this moment, there was something more important. The master was calling those people. Han spoke and pointed towards the square upon seeing the notification. Adis' group consists of 5 people who came together from the mercenary group Wolvos, so their team is always named after Wolvos, and the leader of the group is Avant, the leader of Wolvos. At the same time, Avant's group was on a mission. Many people were approaching Han. They felt that the 5 individuals were very dangerous and could be bad people, so they wanted him to protect them. Of course, without saying, everyone already knows Han's answer. He really hates those unruly people. Everyone just pretends to practice when the master logs in, nothing else. So just get out of my sight before I get angry. Later, while everyone outside was still talking, the Wolvos group had completed the mission and come out. For them, these challenges were no different than child's play. Avant, the group leader, often approached Han and asked about the situation here, but in return, the insolent attitude of our protagonist made his team very angry. But what can they do? And those rude people are the ones they're dealing with. Next, when Avant introduced himself and his teammates, he learned that the person opposite him was named Han Eslat. Furthermore, what surprised him was Han's extraordinary abilities, because he was just a normal farmer and not a mercenary or anything else. After that, he continued to ask, are the people here all members of the domain? And it is known that that is correct. The entire population here is currently waiting in the hall. At the same time, a new announcement signifies the start of a 10 times summon by the master. This time, all 10 new characters are 1 star. It is known that the 10 times summon is a cost-effective type of summon, so the likelihood of high-level heroes is extremely low. As soon as the group of people is successfully summoned, along with the master's command, Isil quickly calls 2 new people to join with the dark skin for synthesis. The dark-skinned guy from the group of wolves drives the other 2 into the room despite how they make protest. A few minutes later, with the sound of a successful announcement, the dark-skinned man emerged with immense power. On the other hand, the newly summoned people are more anxious than ever, knowing that the other group still has 4 people who have not eaten anything. In the face of the chaotic scene of the 1-star shrimp group fleeing, Avant's group has revealed their true selves. He began to use weapons to suppress. Only Atis goes against the captain's orders, but with Avant's pressure, she will probably have to obey the orders soon. When Ham couldn't bear the harassment of the Wolvos anymore, he asked Isil to suggest to the master that each 1-star hero has potential, so they need to spend time on them before taking them out for synthesis. The black teenager, realizing Han's trick, was about to come forward and challenge our protagonist to a fight, but Han was tough enough to not even need to use his hands against the black man's swinging axe. Just 1 arrow from Jenna was enough to show this big guy that Han Islat was not one to be messed with. Seeing the scene, the captain started to provoke Han. Han knew very well that these guys were nothing but trash to him. Of course, Han's words successfully created enmity with the other 4 members of the Avant group. Without further ado, Han continued to ask the captain about their true identities, saying, "Come on, let's be honest. You guys aren't really mercenaries, are you? You're just a bunch of thieves, right?" Upon having their identities exposed, Avant was furious and planned to teach this insolent guy a lesson in front of everyone. However, without needing to take action, Han has suggested to Loisel on how to deal with them. Even though they bear 3 stars, they have a wicked nature. Sooner or later, this waiting room will become chaotic because of them, leading to a decrease in the effectiveness of overcoming obstacles. Now let's open the double combat system. Han pointed his finger towards Avant while speaking, indicating that he wanted to challenge him one-on-one. He then added what he had sensed earlier. He inquired about the situation here to determine the correct population, and as soon as you knew there was no threat, you immediately took action. Of course, for those with only 1 star who have just been summoned, it is not enough to satisfy your hunger. In that case, let's just play. When Avant realized that his scheme had been exposed, he no longer felt compelled to explain. Isn't one fight enough to settle all matters? Knowing that conflicts among heroes in the domain are entirely possible in Pick Me Up, double combats usually require the master's permission and come with betting terms. And this round of betting is a compilation, with the loser becoming a sacrifice for the survivor. Immediately afterwards, Avant launched an attack towards Han like a storm, even though Avant's stats were slightly inferior to Han's. He who knew our protagonist still had a hidden trump card, along with the surprised look of the captain in front of him, who possessed superior strength. Because at that moment Han was in a frenzied state, his combat stats dramatically increased. The outcome of the battle was already inevitable. Avant couldn't even touch a hair of Han, let alone defeat him. As predicted, Avant quickly fell under Han's control. Now it's best for you to surrender. Han whispered into the captain's ear, not knowing his own strength. Outside, seeing the captain being beaten up, the younger gang members couldn't stay still. They began preparing for Han Islat's trial. As for Edis, facing Han's tempting words, she began to consider leaving the Wolvos group. Exactly as Han said, they were just a bunch of thugs who bullied the weak. While the Wolvos gang was angry at Han's humiliation, on the other side, he had the final nail in the coffin. Join our team Edis. I need one more person in this very convenient situation for you. And after that statement, Edis made a decision. Obviously, she left the mercenaries team Wolvos and caused the team to disband. If that's the case, there's no reason to spare you. Avant's 3 younger brothers rushed to attack Han together, however. Their actions were blocked by Yisil. As predicted, the elf's restraining advice couldn't stop these 3 hot-headed guides. Yisil waved his hand and sent the 3 heroes off to sell salt. All the recent scenes of the younger brothers were clearly seen by Avant. He knew his fate by now and reluctantly uttered 2 words to surrender. The outcome of his actions was inevitable. Meanwhile, in reality, Master Water was frantically tapping on the screen. Surely he was boiling with anger for the $50 he just deposited. Along with Han's level up, which was no different from Isol's, she was worried whether the master would quit the game. 4 3-star heroes were just summoned and left in a flash, however, with Han's very convincing words of comfort. Isol regained some spirits. Didn't he mistakenly merge the 4-star hero synthesis into Han earlier? If he quits the game, that's when it will be. Just return the result, no explanation needed, nothing else. No useless quotation marks or punctuation, unless necessary. Despite having just defeated the Master's impressive new heroes, Han remained unfazed. If that Master was smart, he should understand Han's importance. Han was the MVP in most battles, so removing him would make climbing the tower extremely difficult. So, whatever will you do now? If you want to deal with me, you better act decisively. As he stepped out of the assembly room, Han was met with the admiring gazes of all the people in the domain. They thought he had eliminated all the villains, but that wasn't the case. There seemed to be a misunderstanding, and the Master was furious. At the same time, Han spoke. An announcement came that the Master was summoning Louis, Joffrey, Owen, and many others. And everyone knew the purpose of this summons was for an assembly. Just as predicted, shortly after the 6 individuals were called, they became sacrifices for Adis. She quickly leveled up and gained a new skill to track weapons. Now you understand. Don't think others will carry you. If you want to survive, prove your worth. Prior to Han's words, many people were worried because they did not have fighting abilities, but here there are still many skilled workers. You can help the carpenters, blacksmiths, or follow Jenna to hunt. Han's concern is that level 10 is approaching, then the second team will become important. Instead of just a backup team with appearances, the Master will want the second team to be more capable to match the main team. In the morning of the next day, as soon as Han looked for Jenna and Adis, this time he wanted the 2 to fight to evaluate the strength of this new girl. The match happened very quickly. Although Jenna used a dagger that was not her specialty weapon, her strength still completely dominated, and Adis couldn't help but wonder, where did a girl like Jenna get such immense strength? It is known that it is just from training. Han explained that at first, there is no one stronger than Adis here now, so a 3-star person like her will quickly catch up with the others if she trains diligently. Just as he finished speaking, young man Aaron shouted, "It's a scam! I've been training for a whole month, and I haven't seen any progress. Well, this must be a faulty product." Currently, everyone has realized the situation of the domain. Many people have come to training and trained harder. They all know that if they are useless, they will be expelled. And at this point, after observing the others' training, Han targeted a new person. Han approached and asked for the name and learned that the young man was named Ursher, who had just been transferred here in the latest summoning. In addition, Ursher was previously a porter in a mercenary group, so he could handle himself in a fight. If that's the case, it's time to see if you can become a mercenary by wielding a sword. That evening, the initiation of the new recruits began. This time, the master did not care whether they needed assistance or not. Eren volunteered to participate but was rejected, resulting in 2 deaths and 2 injuries, while others went into the dungeon as usual. However, the mine where fire attribute stones could be obtained was still sealed. At sunrise the next day, Han summoned a group of 5 people, including the new member Ursher. This time, Han called everyone here to choose team members. Although the one who directly chose the team of heroes was the master, Han could still make suggestions. Having said that, he quickly took out a pile of voting slips. There are a total of 6 people here, so they will be divided into 2 teams of 3. Those who draw a red slip will be on my team, while those who draw a green one will go to Adis' team. Although Jenna vehemently objected to not being the team leader, she was still stopped by Han. He explained that the reason for dividing into 2 teams was because level 10 was approaching. Remembering that when performing tasks on the 5th level with vastly different strengths, the whole team faced danger when Zid and Hansen couldn't keep up. Therefore, there needed to be a second reserve team in case the first team was wiped out, not to mention the special missions where 10 or even 100 people were needed to complete. After a clear explanation, Han quickly placed the cup for drawing lots down as predicted. Eren and Jenna drew the red lots, and they will continue to stay with Han's team. As for Dika and Ursher, with this look, they must be very confused, however. After a while of talking, it seems like their team has agreed to return. Will it be Team 1 or Team 2 that will become the main team of Master Wather? A few days later, Han's Team 1 was sent to handle the mission on the 7th floor. The mission on this floor is to clean up 13 level 8 goblins, so it's unnecessary for you guys to take action. Han quickly entered a state of rage while speaking, and then no longer hesitated. He immediately defeated all of those goblins. Well, not all of them actually. Han left one of them, keeping it to continue investigating the task flow on this floor. The first strange thing is the rain, the second is a nearby river, and the third is with these stones, it seems that there used to be a dam here. Then the 3 quickly got summoned back to the waiting room after completing the mission. While Jenna was going to take a bath, Han asked Eren to stay because he had just received a notification. This time, the master deposited $70. This is the 3rd time he used money, immediately after the new heroes were summoned. This summon costs 1,000 gems. With only 2 characters, it will definitely be high-level heroes. Han was secretly laughing at the foolish Water. He knew now that he had plunged into the path of addiction. At the beginning, players usually enjoy observing the expressions and emotions of heroes when crossing levels. However, Pick Me Up also has another feature, PvP, a feature that allows players to compete. In addition, as the characters progress, their behavior also gradually changes. Surely, Water is gradually becoming addicted and finds playing with heroes' lives interesting. At the same time, the 2 new heroes were successfully summoned. They are Rurik 3 stars and Volka 3 stars. From their appearance, everyone knows which one is more trustworthy. Evis immediately recognized Volka as a noble woman from her attire and demeanor. She is probably a princess or a young lady from a prestigious family. I don't know about that, but I'm sure she is a good person, my friends. Next, Han quickly asked about the 2 newcomers. It was known that Rurik was a guardian of the big city, so he always felt a sense of responsibility. Han then mentioned that he and Adis will draw straws to choose their partner and team. Surely everyone could guess who the 2 of them wanted to choose, a warrior or a noble lady. At that moment, Jenna coincidentally arrived with the straw draw cup. Whether intentionally or not, Han saw the color of the straw inside. So both Han and Adis rushed towards it to get the color they desired. It was quite certain that Adis had seen the colors of the straws earlier. Nearby, seeing her own miserable situation, Volka then showed the others what was proper etiquette, along with the fire burning behind her. Han and Adis knew what they should choose. The 2 quickly turned around to grab the red-colored straw, while on the other side, Volka was displaying fire magic and intermediate-level fire magic skill. Although her attack and physical stats were not high, her intelligence was outstanding, a typical wizard characteristic. This made the 2 monsters on this side fight to have her. It was noted that in Pick Me Up, warriors and monks could be upgraded through nurturing and training, but wizards were completely different. They were individuals that could only be obtained through paid summons, and the chances of summoning a wizard were extremely low. After that, Jenna took back the card when she knew the other 2 cheated. The 2 would draw again to leave it to luck to choose teammates. This time, the card in Hannislat's hand was red, truly the shine of the main character. The author gives him everything good. Now the results are in. Wizard Yvalka will join Han's team, and Knight Rurik will join Edda's team. As soon as the teams were formed, a synthesized sound echoed. Some people pulled into the synthesis questioning Han. Didn't you say that diligence would not die? But of course, nothing is absolute. Those who are not helpful have only one outcome, which is synthesis. Afterward, Yvalka and Rurik successfully leveled up and learned new skills. While Edda's team too was conducting a test for Rurik outside, Han wanted to know the incantations that Yvalka knew. Although initially stubborn after being threatened and the recent scene, Miss Yvalka probably understood that she should follow her captain. Yvalka finally admitted that she could use fire magic. The most powerful spell she could cast was a third level fire ring spell. Han, before Yvalka's useless answer, asked again, only to find out that she only used fire magic. However, Yvalka was very confident in her ability. She was sure Han would be amazed when he saw her using fire magic. Han no longer asks about Yvalka's arrogant demeanor. He only hopes that she is as strong as she claims to be. The reason Han asks such a question is because he feels that Yvalka may have awakened new skills, but it seems that he has guessed wrong, as a wizard's fighting style remains the same. As they converse, Ada's group completes their task and emerges. Ada's expression suggests that the new member, Rurik, is stronger than she initially thought. However, this is not important. It is now time for Han's group to inspect the new member. They will enter the spatial crack, with Han's team advancing to conquer the 4th floor. Han is pleased with this decision, as the monsters on this floor are neither too strong nor too weak, making it ideal for testing Yvalka's fire magic skills. Teasing the new wizard, Han jokes that they will not help her in the tower, as they can defeat the monsters themselves, and she had promised to broaden his horizons. With a greeting from Isel, Han's team is swiftly led through the gate. But looking at Isel's face, she seems anxious or something, just like that, along with Isel's guilty look. This time, the 4 people arrived not on the 4th floor as announced, but on the 8th floor. Obviously, the bad guy master is taking revenge privately here. Just as Lady Yvalka was still busy looking at the familiar tower in front of her, she was greeted by countless uninvited guests. Luckily, with Han's quick action, she saved her member's life. Indeed, this 8th floor is a bit too much for a newcomer like Yvalka, who would let her go alone to defeat 27 level 9 goblins. All previous plans were cancelled. The team worked hard to defeat and clean up the goblins in front of them under Han's command. The team of 4 quickly formed. Yvalka and Jenna had the task of attacking, providing long-range support with magic and archery. Aaron had the task of mid-range defense, while close combat would be handled by Han. The team of 4 continued to cooperate to defeat each monster. However, the battle was not easy, as the goblins were extremely strong and the close combat team was getting exhausted. Han quickly asked Yvalka to use her skills. But her skills are very strange. Yvalka told me that I need to concentrate for a full minute in order to display the spell. Indeed, there is no other way. Clearly, this is not a superhero transformation, where monsters wait for a minute, but there is no other choice. Han and the other 2 can only resist and wait for support, while Yvalka immediately starts chanting with her magical incantations. Fireball slowly takes shape and grows larger. However, Han also realizes that the monsters are very intelligent, as they prioritize targeting the wizard first, heading straight towards her. But how could Captain Han allow them to carry out their plan so easily? He rushes to block their advancing wave with Aaron's assistance. Even though they are outnumbered, Han now hurriedly asks Yvalka, "Is it almost done?" Only to receive her silence in return. Furthermore, Yvalka can't even move now, so Han and his team now understand. Not to mention a response, even lifting a foot will affect Yvalka's spell. After that, along with the passage of time, there was a continuous tug of war between the 2 sides. On Han's side, they were at a disadvantage due to the overwhelming number of enemies, while some goblins had to sacrifice themselves before the swords of the heroes. However, the most important thing was Yvalka's side. Whether her incantation could be performed or not, it was unknown whether it would be successful or not, as her life was in more danger than ever. A goblin warrior seized the opportunity to strike her, but fortunately Han once again intervened in time. Not knowing what happened, she even cursed him for ruining her spell. In the end, there was no rule that stood between the heavens and the earth to recite an incantation. Next, after successfully releasing the noble lady, the group of 4 quickly fled into the forest. Han knew that with the terrain there, they would be easier to defend, and Yvalka's magic would have time to recite spells. One side chasing, the other side running for their lives, Yvalka saw that Han was always nagging her, causing her annoyance. However, that wasn't the end, little sister, as he was ready to kick the beautiful wizard girl away. Nevertheless, this action could be forgiven, as the monsters were right behind them. Just return the result, no explanation needed, nothing else. No useless quotation marks or punctuation, unless necessary. After making sure that the annoying woman was safely in the woods and under a spell, Han began to enter a state of frenzy. He knew it would only be for today, as this was the second time he had been in this state. He knew it wasn't good, but he had to spare some time for others. Immediately, the monstrous creature unknowingly exerted its full strength and lunged at him. Its speed was astonishing to Han, faster than any goblins he had fought before. Dodging the clumsy attacks of the Goblin Knight was already challenging, but now Han also had to watch out for arrows from the rest of the group. It was clear they were trying to surround him and allow the others to attack, but perhaps they had chosen the wrong strategy this time. With a powerful stomp, Han charged straight into the enemy formation, aiming to take down the wolves that provided agility to the wretched creatures. Although Han only managed to defeat a few at the front line with his attacks, he quickly found himself in a disadvantageous position. Would he end up under the spears and claws of these low-level creatures? Of course not. Just before the spear struck, Han swiftly achieved a double kill. Even though he had successfully escaped from the first disaster, the second disaster came very quickly, with many Goblin Knights rushing towards Han's group when they knew he was exhausted. Facing this scene, Aaron in the forest couldn't just stand by and watch Han being overwhelmed. He thought about going out to support Han, but was stopped by the captain. Han said, "I will take care of things outside. You three just focus on fighting the ones charging in." Saying so, but at this moment Han was more panicked than ever, wondering why Avolka was taking so long, thinking that he might lose his life at any moment. At the same time, while Han was thinking inside, Avolka's magic finally finished casting, urging him to run quickly, boss. With that cry, Han immediately ran back towards the forest, attacking as he ran, setting up a delicious feast for Avolka's fireball to come. And right at this moment, along with that final cry, a huge giant fire blazed through the monsters. This impressive power did not disappoint Han. At least this minute spell has to be this strong. Nearby, Aaron and Jenna could not help but marvel at the scene before them. This is truly magic. It is so powerful. However, if the monsters are swept away like that, wouldn't it be a bit boring? There are still many Goblin Knights surviving after the recent magic attack and rushing to attack Han. Disaster never comes alone. Along with that sword, Han suddenly found himself completely exhausted. Like this, in no time his body will be pierced by 100,000 holes. Just when he thought he was going to meet his grandparents, Jenna timely supported, and Aaron no longer had to protect Avolka, so the three of them reunited to sweep this dungeon clean again. Ah, that's just what I said earlier. These monsters are incredibly strong. The three of them are just trying to resist and wear down this group's forces. The decisive blow is still awaiting from the new guy. Avolka doesn't disappoint her teammates. A second strike has been launched, a vast area covered completely in flames. The goblins inside don't even need to be told. They already know their outcome. Even the bold Han is now cowering in fear. He silently thought if he had been a little slower earlier, he would have turned into a roast human. And if he wants to see how terrifying Volka's power is, he can feast his eyes on the scene ahead. About a minute after destroying level 8, the 4 people were also summoned back. Slapping the faces of the remaining 3 was Avolka laughing like she had just won because of her previous performance. She continued to boast, saying, "This is the absolute power of fire magic. You guys just take a good look, and I am the Witch of the Duke in the river region." While pointing and boasting loudly, she suddenly had a nosebleed and fell backward. Perhaps she had been hit by a spell after all, but it turned out she had just run out of mana after the fireballs a moment ago. As for Han, he looked at the girl in front of him, not knowing whether to be happy or sad. She was like a tank without wheels, strong in firepower, but not flexible and with little defense. However, it must be said, this tank had some fierce firepower. The next day after logging in, the first thing Water had to do was to build a base specifically for the wizard, a magic research room, an alchemy lab, a magic library. The 3 buildings were constructed only to assist the wizard. Now it's clear who the master's favorite is. Meanwhile, the main character of the other 3 buildings was elsewhere. Avolka couldn't understand why a senior wizard like herself was doing physical exercises like this. Clearly someone like her should use her mind. Sure, here's the revised passage. Okay, but you'll have to eat those potatoes. Meat is only for physically active people. Teasing Han, she also asked, "Why is Avolka wearing that tight outfit to go running?" Then she explained, "This is a magical item of my family. As you know, magical items enhance magical power. The Avolka dress she often wears is one of her items." Meanwhile, Master Whenever has been spending a lot of time watching the characters these days, although not certain he must have a favorite by now. The distance to level 10 is not far now. Owning a wizard is really timely. In addition, the dungeon has unlocked the entire terrain daily. Now the ingredients are complete and only waiting for instructions to craft items. Although alchemy requires an alchemist and an alchemical laboratory, Han is different. He can use manual crafting like sword forging to make it. A few minutes later, Han entered the magic castle, where there were many books for specialized extraordinary abilities, but as a farmer, he couldn't read, so he had to focus on crafting this time, starting to make alchemical ingredients. Immediately, Han began to put the ingredients in for refining, and of course, with perfect completion of the game, the crafting process was very fast and successful. Clearly, when you are a pro player, even if you are a farmer, you can master all the other extraordinary abilities. Another day passed. The next day, early in the morning, Han called Jenna and Aaron to the warehouse. He looked at the charcoal kiln in front of him and asked the two, "Do you know why I placed the charcoal kiln here? Look at the actions I'm about to do." With Han's words, accompanied by the surprised looks of the other two, Han placed his bare hands on the hot coals in the furnace, explaining that this was for Avulka's sake. As if the team already had a fire magic wizard, then they should also get familiar with fire. Time passed to the extreme fear of Jenna and Aaron. When a clock counted down to 10, Han finally withdrew his arm. Of course, it was almost ruined by the heat, but everything would quickly recover in the waiting room. Han then continued to explain that the three of them should get used to this, as in the upcoming battles, the first person to receive Avulka's fire magic would be them. With those words, Han leaned into Aaron's ear and said, "You two find a quiet place to do it. I'm not interested in hearing you scream here." Jenna next to him saw the Captain Han's threat and broke out in a sweat. But how can she escape? "If you don't want to, let me help you." Even though it's forced, but then Han also suggested another way for the two. If you don't want to train fire resistance, you can endure pain. By using healing potions, it can heal the hero's condition, but it also comes with intense pain. Knowing that Jenna is very afraid of pain, Han had a different way for her. She will learn to transform. He wants Jenna to be proficient in using a bow and sword, so she can alternate between the two weapons until she becomes skilled at it. The close to mid to long range combat formation will be eliminated. Then the team will deploy a triangle formation with Avulka standing in the center as the main damage dealer. Jenna, upon hearing this, naturally feels like fainting. This formation is nothing like protecting the arrogant princess. Meanwhile, after returning, Han begins to think about the upcoming strategy. Normally, a main team is best with two wizards, one for attacking and one for healing and shielding. However, aim for the target on level 10 first. Level 9 will be handed over to Team 2 for them to adapt to climbing the tower. And then level 10 is a difficult floor, so at least two teams need to collaborate. It will be the biggest challenge so far. Preparation is crucial. They want to avoid repeating the result on level 5. With these thoughts and training, Han Eslat successfully learned the fire resistance skill that night. The next morning, the little princess approached Han, continuing to transfer her goals through Avulka. He told her she needed to hone her skills more because no one would wait and protect her for a minute. Despite feeling annoyed by his teasing remarks, she had no choice but to shorten her time. Avulka reluctantly agreed to the captain that she would try harder in the future. Han knew that her fire magic followed a 3-tier structure. The first tier was to create fire and shoot it forward. The second was to burn through explosive fire, and the third was to offer a vertical explosion. With more tiers, the energy consumption would increase, but the effectiveness would be powerful. On the same day, Han continued to practice with Jenna as usual. Han practiced blocking arrows with a sword, having seemingly completely abandoned her shield from her arsenal. Jenna's talent was exceptional, combining with her rapid learning speed, making Han feel like someone was constantly on her tail. If he wasn't a master and knowledgeable in the game, Jenna would have surpassed him a long time ago. Regarding Aaron, these days he did not come to practice. Perhaps he is diligently studying the skills of pain resistance and fire resistance as Han suggested. At this time, some new people also appeared at the training ground, but none of them stood out. Both Team 1 and Team 2 currently do not have enough members, but it seems that the Master does not intend to summon any new heroes. At the same time, Team 2 of Adonis also just returned after exploring the 9th floor. Han went to inquire about the situation, and Adonis informed him that the task of this floor is to conquer a goblin village with about 50 creatures, but strangely, the ground there resembles a muddy swamp when it rains. After that, Han's team quickly completed the mission on the 4th floor. Han felt that everyone's level had reached the limit at the current levels. These lower floors cannot help the team level up anymore, especially with the development of the team's weapon equipment workshop being improved. The two newcomers at the training ground, Shuron and Makin, were temporarily added to Teams 1 and 2, although they had no combat experience, skills, or anything else, but there was no other choice. That night, Isol's manager appeared to inquire about Loki's preparation, thinking that Han must have guessed the mission at the 10th floor. However, no one is that divine. If one could accurately guess the tasks, then Han would have conquered all 100 floors already. Although he is known as the Master of Masters, Loki has only reached level 88 in his 2 years of playing the game. At those levels, his entire support team was almost wiped out when facing countless challenges and random traps. But in this domain, if that master were to taste failure, it would likely be his last moment alive. The next noon, many warriors were gathered in the town square, and seeing Volka's puzzled face, Han explained, the mission will be given soon. He guessed that since the master had logged in for 30 minutes without giving orders, he must be considering his options. Currently, Han has reached the maximum level of a star, but has not yet mastered the other skills. If the master spends another week practicing, the whole team will be able to advance to level 10 with a safer mindset. However, if he does that, Han will not be known as Master Water anymore. Right after, the space crack opened with Isol's command. Ultimately, for the master, this is just a game. Even if everyone dies, he can simply recruit more heroes. As predicted earlier, this mission requires 2 teams, but in terms of strategy, that other master probably won't be of any help. Then Han quickly asked Isil to bring out the 6 blood and mana healing items. Dividing them into 3 for each team is perfect. As for Edis, he also reminded her to regroup at the center as soon as entering the tower. It is very likely that when entering, the 2 teams will be taken to different areas. Shortly after that, the mission to conquer the 10th floor was deployed. Just upon entering, Han's group discovered an NPC. Judging by his state of mind, he must have been very panicked to create such an expression. With a kick, Han found out that this person could not see their group, probably NPCs who could not interact with heroes on missions. Upon closer inspection, everyone noticed that this place looked somewhat familiar, from the architecture to the atmosphere. After a final observation, Han finally remembered this place. It was the city in the mission on the 5th floor, just that on the 10th floor this place had not been destroyed. Upon discovering that this place was the castle on the 5th floor, Jenna wondered, why is it like this? This place was already destroyed before. However, if Han could explain it, he wouldn't have to stand here and pass the checkpoint. Regardless of how the timeline has changed, what matters is that we have been summoned here. The most urgent task now is to survive and get out. Now, while the mission has not started, everyone should split up to gather information, and 5 minutes later, everyone will gather here to report. While the remaining 4 people were looking for information around, Han also found an ideal observation point where he could see everything. The soldiers here were almost no longer in fighting spirits, while the horde of monsters outside numbered in the thousands, concentrating in the northern forest area. To the east, there were also hundreds of goblin riders, while our side only had over 300 soldiers outside the city. No matter how you looked at it, this was indeed a hopeless situation. However, Han was very hopeful that this mission would be similar to the 5th floor. As long as it was a survival mission, the chance of the whole team surviving would be very high. There are many NPCs here, so it will be much easier compared to the 5th floor. Additionally, there was also a wizard proficient in wide area attacks. When he arrived at the location, Han also found out that Adis' team had just arrived. However, before the good news could be celebrated, bad news arrived, with 3 consecutive warning bells sounding from the signaling system indicating a high difficulty mission. This time, the mission was to defend the target and protect the city from collapsing. After that, the team quickly deployed their battle plan. As per Aaron's intelligence, the northern and eastern gates were under attack by goblin hordes, while there were no gates to the south and west, meaning essentially everyone was trapped. Before questioning Adis' task this time, Han had to tell the truth of the task that everyone needed to clean up the goblin outside to protect the city. Although a bit hard to believe, that is the truth. Nearby, Rurik proposed a strategy: temporarily retreat if we withdraw from the city wall and use guerrilla tactics into their rear. However, Han immediately rejected this idea. If it is true that we need to eliminate all the monsters to complete the task, then the condition for failure is that statue over there. Han said, looking at the statue in front of the bell tower, this glowing twin goddess statue often appeared in special missions, so Han was sure it was closely related to this task. And one more thing, if only 2 teams fail in this task, everyone will die, meaning they must protect the statue at all costs. At this point, Han also added that all of the goblins were numerous. They lacked siege equipment. Only the northern group had siege towers, so defending the north gate would give them enough time. After explaining, Han immediately ordered Adis to lead Team 2 move to the north wall to assist in defense. However, before leaving, Adis had questioned. This is a task to rid monsters, so if defense works, what's the point? What the whole team needs to do is to eliminate them. Just as Adis said, Han is also worried about this. If adding 10 more people, the whole fortress will only have 360 fighters. The ratio is 1 to 10. Furthermore, according to what happened on the 5th floor, this group has no intention of retreating. But after all, this is a game, so no matter how difficult it is, there must be a clue. Thinking, Han mentioned the dam on the 7th floor, where a dam was broken to the east of the city. Looking back, all the instructions from the 6th to the 9th floor pointed straight toward that dam. Hearing this, Jenna suddenly remembered something. She said, "Earlier, I heard the sound of horses from the other side of the river." Upon hearing this, Han and Adis knew why those didn't appeared, that this city could rely on reinforcements. Now the plan is clear, and his team is tasked with defending the wall, waiting for Team 1 to return with reinforcements. As for Jenna and Aaron, who still don't understand, Han explains again more clearly that the city was destroyed on the 5th floor because the rain of reinforcements could not arrive in time. Because the river flows quickly after the dam broke, the task now is to rush outside through the east gate and prevent the dam from being destroyed. Despite the difficulties, we must wager on this chessboard. At the same time, inside the castle walls, people were pouring and hoping to find a place of refuge. Meanwhile, Han's group of 5 quickly spotted the outer gate on the east side of the wall. Jenna was tasked with climbing up and observing. Volka was ready to unleash his magic at any moment. As soon as the gate was opened, Aaron was to use the winch to open the outer gate after Jenna climbed up and observed the enemy army, which was as numerous as ants pouring out of an anthill. Despite the fact that there was no turning back from this chess move, Han and Aaron continued to slowly open the gate, causing panic among the guards. They thought there was some supernatural force intervening because they couldn't see the heroes. A few seconds later, as the gate opened, Volka completed his spell. The leading goblins were all taken back to the heavens. Despite the rain affecting the fire magic, direct attacks were still very effective. The 5th young member of the team had a pale face with no blood left after the recent scene. Han called him back to aid his team, as his task of defending the castle would be easier for someone new like him. All preparations were complete and the gate was closed. The only way forward was to kill off this horde in hopes of reaching the dam. After that, the battle between the two sides with 4 fighters against thousands broke out, with Han, Jenna, and Aaron tasked with defense while Volka focused on casting spells. The triangular formation was deployed with Volka's fire magic at the center. The fire burst out, opening up a path for the team to advance, acting as both an attack and a shield. However, due to the rain, the wall of fire disappeared quickly. Volka's spells lasted for 20 seconds each time. Could the 4 of them create a path through the goblin army? Seconds later, with a signal from the goblin army commander, the monsters attacked even more aggressively. Han noticed that their tactics had changed, charging straight into the magical attacks. After observing for a while, Han finally discovered the difference. It was definitely a goblin commander standing behind them, who knew about the delay in Volka's magic and was directing the monsters to attack recklessly. This time, Han was truly scared, facing an intelligent goblin for the first time. On this side, although Aaron and Jenna are still okay, if this continues, they won't last long. Fire resistance skills only help increase heat resistance, not completely resist it. Furthermore, if the fight continues, the team will surely exhaust themselves. With those thoughts, Han quickly called everyone together. This time we will destroy the lead monster. Volka's plan will be the key. Just after saying that, a powerful attack went straight through the front line of the monster, blocking the way ahead. Although not enough to defeat the lead monster, it's not over yet. Following that fire, Jenna's arrows came. She took the opportunity for the monsters to focus on the magic attack and shot an arrow straight towards it. After that attack, Volka also fell into a deep sleep. She almost depleted her mana after consecutive fireball attacks earlier. Han knew that although Volka's magical power had destroyed many of the monsters, not all of them. However, he also knew their target. They were aiming for the fortress behind, and the 4 of them were just obstacles. Now without a leader, well, they do. And as Han predicted, with no control, they turned towards their original target, the fortress, whether they should be happy or sad. A few minutes later, the whole group successfully sneaked into the nearby forest. Han began to provide healing supplies for everyone to recover after the intense battle. The team had to quickly recover and advance towards the dam, as the fortress to the north was more dangerous than ever. It was uncertain when they would be overwhelmed and the mission would fail. Before the team could even rest for long, a new goblin army approached. This time it was a small branch of their forces consisting of 19 level 9 goblins. Han could handle this group, but there was also a massive orc level 23 accompanying the goblin squad. Before the 4 could comprehend what was happening, the orc led the army straight towards Han's group. He quickly divided the tasks, making it clear that he would deal with the orc while the other 3 would take care of the remaining goblins. Despite the plan, with the powerful blows from the orc, Han struggled to fight back. Just one hit could easily end his life. After learning about Han's difficulties, Volka quickly set up a wall of fire so that he could easily solo with the orc. Without the distraction of the goblin mob around, Han slowly regained the upper hand. However, despite striking many times, these sword strikes hardly harmed the thick skin layer, truly no way to penetrate. Even Jenna's supportive arrows couldn't penetrate it. At this rate, some will lose names. It still is the usual tragic ending. Jenna looked into the distance and discovered another orc advancing towards this place. Then there's no other way but to risk it all. With those thoughts, Han determined to live or die with the orc once. He ran straight to it and began to look for weaknesses. Clearly, with the protagonist Aura, Han's plan was a complete success. Turns out this one is a male. Now, not anymore. After the sword struck and took away the invaluable giant super stick, the orc became more frantic in its attacks. Han also took this opportunity to jump onto its head. Very quickly afterward, a sword stabbed straight into the neck and a slash. The first head was resolved. Returning to Eren and Yvolka's group over here, the remaining orc turns out to be extremely intelligent as it aims straight for the wizard. Despite Jenna's attempts to attract its attention, things did not go as expected. It threw Eren off and prepared to crush him. Yvolka was still chanting the spell, but the scene that followed surprised Han everyone even more. It seemed like it intentionally missed. Yvolka was standing still, of course not. Han, with the mind of a seasoned master, began to piece together all the clues, remembering clearly on the 7th floor the dam was broken by shattered pieces falling on the ground. So after eliminating the absurdities, the answer was only one thing that the orc was aiming for, the dam. It was destroying the dam with its own life. However, the team here was not just for show. Jenna quickly climbed up and began attacking the orc with her short sword. Han also rushed over, determined to send this creature to sell salt before its goal was achieved. In this way, with Han and Jenna alternating between attacking the giant orc, in less than half a minute, the orc lay down with wounds all over its body. But life is never as beautiful as in the movies. The orc fell, and coincidentally, when it fell, it destroyed the dam. Despite successfully defeating 2 giant monsters, the protection mission was not completed. With the raging floodwaters pouring down, it seemed that the army on the other side of the forest could no longer cross the river. So, what would happen to the 350 soldiers in the fortress, along with the 10 members of Team 1 and Team 2, who now had to fight over 3,000 goblins? However, this was definitely beyond their abilities. After some thought, Han saw no other choice but to order everyone to return. At least returning proved to have some sort of magic, as the 4 individuals who were expected to return empty-handed did not. Yvolka stopped and began chanting a spell, the spatial magic. To the surprise and joy of the remaining group, Yvolka moved a large rock to fill the gap in the dam. The team's heavy hearts were now greatly relieved. Now it was clear why Han had chosen Yvolka earlier. And to top it off, Han, the team captain, was the one who held a grudge against Yvolka. He scolded Yvolka for hiding this ability before, not realizing that this was a basic magic spell Yvolka chose not to reveal. Now the emergency situation has passed, but there is still another matter. The goblin army that previously attacked the city has returned after the disturbances of the dam. These guys really know how to take advantage of opportunities. Han's team members are all exhausted, making it difficult to completely wipe out these hundreds of monsters. However, what Han is most worried about is that several hours have passed since the mission began, but there is no sign of reinforcements anywhere. If things don't go as planned this time, it will be even more difficult. Continuing the battle, Yvolka has used her last energy potion. As she prepares to use her skills, as usual, she attracts a lot of goblins to attack her. This time, not even Han is nearby to provide support. Could everything end with Yvolka? Suddenly, a knight from the Iron Lion cavalry arrives just in time, introducing himself as the commander of the cavalry. Then, with a sword raised to the sky and a resounding roar, the cavalry charge forward to wipe out the goblin horde from the east. This is the cavalry unit that Han and everyone has been waiting for. Back to Han. He also told the whole team to stand still. Although the army consisted of only about 500 people, they were much stronger than the army in the city. These goblins will be wiped out in no time. Han then turned to the horses left behind by fallen soldiers and asked, "Does anyone know how to ride a horse?" It turned out that everyone could accept him, so there was no other way. Han suggested to the master to send him an introductory horse riding skills book. Even though the master could not intervene in the battle, they could have an impact by providing equipment to their hero. This time the book that Han requested cost a whopping 500 gems, which roughly equates to $10, guys. It's truly a legendary blood-sucking game. Going back to the story, at this point, Han had learned the skill and was on his way back to the city. The power gap between the two sides was closer than ever. It was time for a counterattack. According to Han's calculations, until the city gate collapsed, the goblin army in the east was not concerned. The priority now was the army with equipment for attacking the northern city walls. Surely the cavalry also had the same idea. If they followed behind to support the northern gate, the mission would be successful. Thinking suddenly, Han's head jumped with excitement. There's no way it could be that easy. Why would this cruel game end on floor 10 like that? With those thoughts, Han immediately shouted for the team to stop and quickly separated from the cavalry unit. In front of Mr. Eren's bewildered face, Han explained things will not end as easily as everyone thought. Now quickly move out of firing range and head towards the northern forest. In the minutes that followed, the 4 of them and 2 horses flew as directed by Han. if, as he guessed, the goblin cavalry was ambushing from the woods, so this time he planned to use Volka's magic to block them. A moment later, the team quickly spotted the cavalry unit that Han had just mentioned, including many high-level orcs. If this group joined the main force, our army would surely suffer heavy casualties. At this point, Han asked, Volka, can you still use magic? It was confirmed that she could, however, would not be as powerful as before. Hearing this, Han continued to instruct her, just focus on the area. From now on, we will go through the northern forest. When we get there, use your power to burn down the entire forest. Back to the battle at the wall, Avis's team was no better than Han's group. The defenders inside the wall were limited, but the monsters outside seemed endless. They rushed in without regard for their own lives. As they were busy fighting, Avis suddenly noticed something approaching. It was the Iron Lion army. A bloody battle ensued outside the wall, exciting Avis and everyone else. The reinforcements are here. Han's team must have succeeded. Let's focus on the fight now. Victory is within our reach, Avis shouted, gripping a few Gobrin heads. Meanwhile, in the northern forest, Han's fire plan was a success. The fire and the wind turned the monster cavalry into roasted meat. However, Han felt satisfied with the result. Volka's mana was almost depleted, so her role would end here. Burning the entire forest was the best strategy, as it was the ideal breeding ground for goblins. On the northern battlefield, although the cavalry unit had lost more than half of their troops, they were still very strong. With just under 500 people, they overwhelmed and wiped out over 2,000 goblins. Han and the others had completed their mission without any casualties this time. Clearly, the team was very different from when they were on the 5th floor. Jenna, curious, asked with a smile, why hasn't the whole group been summoned back to the domain? Isn't the mission over? Han suddenly realized something was off. Why hasn't the mission ended even after dealing with all the monsters? Could there still be hidden tasks? Before he could wonder any further, all the time in the tower suddenly froze, leaving only Han able to move, wondering if a serious error had occurred. As Han was pondering, a voice called for him to quickly turn around, and there stood his enemy. He was the loophole in the level 999 game, the one who would drag Han Seo Jin into this hellish game. Moreover, upon closer inspection, Han noticed another figure beside him, a figure named Dark Priest, who left him with just 5 words, I will wait for you. After that statement, he immediately went into the forest and disappeared, leaving Han bewildered and confused, still not understanding what had happened. Once the system was restored, Han shouted loudly, everyone, quickly enter the city. Hurry as fast as you can. The reason for this was because he knew the Dark Priest. It was a creature full of power within his body, capable of resurrecting the dead. At the same time, outside, the corpses began to transform and attack the living from humans to goblins. None of these bodies were exceptions. The only way to destroy these undead creatures was to destroy their heads. The appearance of such monsters on the 10th floor was impossible, but right now it was the truth. After successfully entering the city, Han handed Volka over to Jenna, saying, quickly gather with the Edis team and protect the statue of the goddess. As long as we close the gate tightly, everyone can hold out until I return. With the closing of the gate, Han knew what would happen to him next. Although they looked disgusting, they were very weak when standing alone. With that thought in mind, Han quickly rushed forward. However, one thing beyond his expectations, that orc has also been resurrected, and with its hammer, it is crazily smashing the northern gate. At this rate, the gate will soon not be able to withstand anymore. Just as Han had thought, right after that the gate collapsed under its relentless hammer blows, followed by thousands of undead of all kinds advancing in. At this rate, the entire city will be swept clean very quickly. Outside, Han knew this would happen, but did not expect it to be so fast. If that's the case, then now he has only one choice left. Han must deal with the one who created this spell, who disappeared in the smoke of the burning forest. Basically, the movement of the undead only relies on 2 principles. 1 is to destroy the idol, and 2 is to resist living creatures. Even though their power and skills are much inferior to when they were alive, their desire to eat flesh and kill has abnormally increased. These things are perfect objects created to resist attackers. As for Edis, she is still leading the 2 teams perfectly. The team's mission right now is to protect the statue of the goddess, which is in the center of the city. They need to strategically deploy forces around the city to resist the undead for as long as possible. Obviously, this is not easy. At this point, people in the outskirts of the city are panicking, causing the deployment of military forces to be delayed. Back to Han, although he couldn't see it with his own eyes, he could imagine the situation in the city. He needed to act faster than ever. As minutes passed, Han reached the edge of the map on the 10th floor. Although he couldn't see him, he knew he was there, and now the notifications of his sacrificed teammates started to appear. One by one, Macken, Shuren, even Edis was losing blood and getting seriously weakened. Seconds later, Han missed his chance to focus, a dark spear thrust straight into his shoulder. Although Dark Priest's fighting ability was low, that was when it usually appeared on lower levels, not on the 10th floor. Indeed, his strength was a nightmare. Although Han could withstand the dark spears, it was only temporary. With his wounds and the smoke and flames, Han was gradually weakening. Every breath he took in the smoke misted his lungs. It seemed like Han would be stuck in finding the Dark Priest, but then he spoke, wanting to talk to him, feeling that Han was different from the others here. This time is different. Han was just waiting for the opportunity to quickly throw his sword towards the voice of the Dark Priest. Seconds later, Han immediately entered a state of frenzy. This time the plan was to have no plan at all. Han rushed towards the ultimate target, fighting fast and winning fast. Although one hand was severely injured by the Dark Spear, one remaining hand was enough. The Dark Priest was right in front of him, and even with this wounded body, everything would be restored if Han could return to the domain. With that determination, every drop of Dark Priest's fresh blood scattered on the ground signified the outcome of the battle, but had everything really ended? At this moment, Han questioned himself with the remaining breath. Why hasn't the completion of the mission notification appeared yet? Could it be that after all this is not the end? His eyes closed with the fire of the forest. This was truly the most senseless death he could think of, being pulled into the gang and going through countless hells. Those teammates of his would eventually end their lives just like him. Is that really so? At that moment, the final summoning light appeared. The defense mission of level 10 had been completed with MVP Han Eslat. The reward was 70,000 gold. Along with a low-grade fire attribute stone, the dungeon exploration was unlocked. The master could collect adventure stones and many other rare items. The waiting room name would be changed to Tonia. The next morning, Han finally woke up after a night of being in a coma. When he went to the dining room, the first person he encountered was Aaron, who seemed to be in a bad mood. When Han asked about what had happened in the castle after he left, Aaron recounted everything in detail. The zombies had invaded the city and wiped out everyone. All the NPCs and 2 members of our team, Shuran and Makin, died. After speaking, Aaron asked to go back to his room, and Han could tell that he must be feeling very depressed to show such a face. That same night, there was a lavish feast in Domain, the grandest one ever, as a reward for everything that had happened. Along with this feast, it seemed that everyone's spirits were gradually lifting. The next day, the master created an upgrade room where players could synthesize attribute stones and upgrade hero levels. The master quickly synthesized the 3 types of stones to create low-grade upgrade stones. Isel had just received the upgrade stone and brought it to Han with a joyful expression. Her goal was to turn Han into a 7-star hero and conquer the tower. However, that would have to wait, as they first needed to complete the upgrade process in the synthesis room. With that thought in mind, Han slowly entered the inside of the room. He then placed the upgrade stone in the central area, and a beam of light enveloped everything until Han opened his eyes. Everything in front of him looked unfamiliar. A woman with a child was in that separate space, and Han guessed that the sleeping child was Han Eslat, the one who should be standing in this position instead of him. Next, Han continued to leave the room and saw a place that looked exactly like his living room. However, Han knew this was not that place. Even the manager here was not Isel. She only resembled her in appearance, and then a dungeon gate suddenly appeared, an upgraded dungeon with extremely difficult difficulty. Han guessed this was where he would perform the upgrade challenge, and so he boldly stepped inside. Indeed, this place was scarier than he had anticipated. The pressure immediately sent Han Eslat's body into a panic state, until he entered a frenzy state where everything was resolved. Truly resolved, the enemy stood right in front of him, the game boss with level 999. Although Han's sword was pointing straight at him, he knows he is hopeless in this battle. His body stands still regardless of what the bad guy says, because he remembers when he had wiped out Dora's 6-star team in just 10 seconds. Seeing Han's panic, the bad guy begins to laugh mockingly. So you also know your own strength. If you hadn't held back, you would have died long ago. After learning Han's curiosity, he continues to approach and tells him that he is a special existence. This place is a gift specially prepared for Han Seo Jin, the staves that we have prepared for the glorious ranker of Pick Me Up, I Am. The author does not say what it is. Just know that she looks exactly like Ysel, as if she is an exaggerated version of an elf. Then, despite Han's countless questions, the girl begins to explain. In fact, it's not that I look like Lysel. It's that it looks like me. It's just a copy of me. If you count accurately, Isel is the 100,479th copy. Isn't it also similar to the total number of downloads of the game? At this moment, Han took out the Mobius information card, and it was indeed as she said. However, what Han was concerned about now was why she brought him into the game. In front of that fierce expression, Isel, the big version, just mocked because she couldn't believe that Han dared to threaten her with just 1 star. Then she began to show the male lead what real power is. A dark power crept and pierced straight into Hanneslat's chest, but this was just a test. If she wanted to kill him, he would have died long ago. She also added, I really enjoyed Han's expression just now. Even when the spear touched his heart, he couldn't blink. In short, I'm your fan. She began to stand up and speak seriously. Player Loki, the invincible warrior, ranked 5th in the world. You don't know how many of your games have impressed me. The Niflheim domain is also the top observation target of the company. This time, I come here to tell you a truth of this world. Do you know where you are? Vessel just mentioned the giant version while changing the landscape around. This is the Ninja City on the Hem Peninsula on the continent of Tonia. This is the city where you completed the mission on level 10. It can be seen that it has been completely destroyed. Here are the cities of Sukiya, Kaya, and Adora. Following that are countless other cities on the continent, all of which have something in common. They have been destroyed. So do you think Nephilim is different? All continents connected to Mobius have become like this. Over 100 million worlds are facing destruction at the same time. Now you can guess. This is the book that predicts the outcome. All the characters inside it hope for a different ending. What they can do is very simple. That is to pull someone from outside the book in. A person with the power to change fate. Only you can observe them. Master Loki. At this moment, Han finally smiled and asked why she had told him all of these things, and she revealed that it was for cooperation, as they wanted to work with him to change the world. Before she could finish speaking, Han's head suddenly exploded. He was extremely angry at her nonsense words, thinking, how can someone who forced me here dare to say they want to cooperate? In response, the girl continued to approach him with a sinister smile, as if this was Han's final moment, but it turned out not to be. She once again explained why Han was chosen, saying, you are the only one out of over 100 million players to achieve this accomplishment, the only one who truly understands the meaning of the phrase and believes in the connection between hero and master. With that statement, Han was transported to another scene, the 80th floor of the tower, which Loki had conquered 6 months prior. Out of 100 million players, only Han and 4 others ranked above him could reach this level. It was then that Han remembered having a surprising memory with it. On the other hand, the girl urged Han to sit down quickly to see the upcoming scene, assuring him that he would feel comfortable with it. She explained that this level 80 challenge was the first type of conquest, although Pick Me Up was a game with random challenges. The 80th floor was on a whole different level, causing all masters to struggle and experience countless failures. It was known as the Wall of Tears, and only a mere 5 people had ever surpassed it. As Han had expected, he knew exactly how terrifying floor 80 was. After passing floor 79, he thought he could easily overcome floor 80 right away, but the reality was quite different. Apart from his main team, all of his auxiliary teams were completely wiped out. Hell was the best word to describe that place, where the harsh environment was so severe that no life could thrive. At the same time as Han's thoughts, the broken pieces appeared one by one, forming the hellish floor 80. It was then that the girl revealed another shocking secret of the game. The difficulty level of Pick Me Up could depend on the account, and the summoning rate was similar. Now you understand Loki. The reason why no one has ever reached a 5-star hero is not due to bad luck, but simply because there are no more heroes left in Niflheim, where the manager is one of the few accounts rated at S level, one of the worst domains. This is why the company has always wondered how you could reach floor 88. While the two were talking, a battle in floor 80 had already begun. This was the punishment of the 5 heroes of Loki's main team, facing thousands of dark shards, creating a world of hellish horror. However, just before the battle began, it was temporarily postponed. This is what makes the members of the company admire Loki. He always comes up with perfect strategies and plans for his heroes. This is why Master Loki is a special and unique existence, trusted by his heroes in every mission. Those heroes include Archduke Miyaku Geisfeld, King of the Night Delk Eros Mutin, Sword King Redigion, Mark Queen Juliet, and finally Fire King Cirrus Agentheim. Once again seeing the upcoming battle in awe, Issel the Great couldn't help but be amazed. She knew that these 6-star heroes were truly powerful. However, there is something even more important, what they think of their master, as well as the tower climbing and continuously growing heroes. They will begin to realize the truth and soon despair when they find out that someone sees them as toys or pets. Can they continue to be loyal to their master? Most likely not. But you, Loki, you are the true king of Niflheim. Who would believe that a master like you would appear, the only one who does not need to use the control room throughout the game? Just as she said, usually masters will use the control room to control heroes when they do not obey or are useless. Masters will usually erase them without hesitation. Even if they are a low-level hero with exceptional talent, they will always become food for those higher ranking. However, for Seo Jin, he has never turned to a 5-star hero and only has a single 4-star hero. Surely everyone can call this an unlucky account. Even countless people advised him to delete the account, but he still persisted with it. Han always values characters with potential even if their level is low, because he knows that ruling a waiting room with fear will soon collapse. Every time a hero proves their usefulness, they will be rewarded and punished when they can't. That is the principle of Master Loki. At that moment, she continued to wonder, why does Han know the truth that he recognized it when he was still a master or when he had become a hero? Before that question, Han did not answer, but he had thought about it from the beginning. Every time he gave instructions, the heroes all had different reactions, and their actions were not the same. It's really hard to believe that they are all virtual creatures created from a program. However, all of that doesn't matter. Han wondered, is all this what she wants to say, that she and the company really like my fighting style? If so, then she has successfully collected my anger. If on Earth, I would definitely bury her 8 meters underground. It doesn't matter to detain her or knifle him. I am an earthly person, so don't impose your own situation on others. Before Han's anger, the girl just laughed and said, the heroes in Niflheim will fall if you say so. Although Han seemed indifferent, he knew she had another purpose. If she only wanted him to climb the tower, she wouldn't have brought him here. Further questioning from Han, she admitted to causing the Dark Priest and assured no interference from the 15th floor onwards. However, don't celebrate yet. Even without interference, Thomir will welcome you with a shock similar to the S-class difficulty in Niflheim. She then explained, there's a high chance Master Water will quit this domain, but if there's interference, everything will change. When you reach the top of the tower, I guarantee you will be sent back to Earth. I will also transfer half of Mobius Corporation's shares I own to you, making you a major shareholder of a super conglomerate that can shake the world economy. However, before she could finish her sentence, the chairman again bit Han's bait. He knew he couldn't trust her, and above all, he believed he could overcome the tower on his own to return. I thought that offensive gesture would really send Han back to his grandparents, but once again she forgave him. At the same time, a gate gradually appeared and opened. As she said, this is the real introduction of Pick-Me-Up for Han. The real world of the Teonia domain on this peaceful and prosperous continent. An unknown enemy appeared, plunging everything into darkness and tearing life into pieces. Han's mission is to change that destiny, the destiny that had already set the outcome of the battle before it began. With those images being the words, Han stepped through the door, successfully upgrading to 2 stars and awakening the forgotten hero memories. The next day, a system error was announced by Mobius. All masters on the lower level lost connection simultaneously, and an apology was issued. Although no one knew the truth behind it, Han suspected it was the mission on the 10th floor. But still good news for most masters. Those affected by the system will receive 500 gems as compensation, 50,000 gold, a gift card. Finally, the dungeon will be open continuously for 3 days without time limits, and Meisel heard about Han's successful promotion and came to congratulate, but received a distant look from him. Han said he had a conversation with her main self, so there was no need to hide anything anymore. Although this was a bit surprising for Yisil, but if that's the case, there's no other way. She brought out a special reward that the master had specially prepared for Han after completing the mission, holding in her hand a power card worth 10,000 gold. Han just kept silent, but he knew that gifts were something that the master usually sent to heroes or those who showed good signs. Usually, gift cards are tickets with a gold denomination, but high-end tickets can also be purchased with gems and high-level materials. Immediately after that, Han returned the 10,000 gold card. He could need it for anything, and besides, with just this, he couldn't buy anything worthwhile in the store. Along with Isil's panic and worry, the reward card quickly turned into a horse statue. It turns out that Master Water thought Han didn't like money, so he bought this banana statue for him. Of course, shortly afterwards, that statue also quickly returned to the dust, although this would disappoint that master, but this is the best way. If only a hero was given a gift, it would create jealousy in the waiting room. Moreover, it was necessary to teach that guy respect and understand his hero. In the days that followed, Han and everyone in the team continued their missions. However, most of them seemed to be annoyed and uncomfortable with the master's orders. At the same time, the gate of the tower was opened, expecting to practice more, but this time the mission was to conquer level 11. Han frowned at this screen because he knew who his real opponent was now. The master guy is too good at pretending to be sick. Maybe he is delusional about his strength being able to easily overcome difficult dungeons. Normally, the master has to rearrange his team and have his heroes train on lower levels before aiming for the next target. But with this action, he may be completely misunderstanding. Probably Water is mistaking the effort of the heroes for his own talent. A few seconds later, Han's team was quickly summoned to level 11, where the task was to clear the skeleton warriors while Han evaluated the master he was serving. According to him, Water did very well in the early levels when following the Loki forum. He diligently nurtured characters and developed foundations. However, everything started to change from level 5, where he completed missions that should have failed. Perhaps that's why Water started to deviate, bit by bit. Considering himself talented and constantly sending heroes to conquer new dungeons without any strategy, this may be a difficult future. That night, Han had a private conversation with manager Isel. The first sentence was about the name of the main entity, the girl president of the conglomerate who looks exactly like her. Then it was revealed that she had many names. In each world, she would have a different name, and in town, she is named Tail. At this point, Han remembered that if what Tail said earlier was true, there would be more than 100 million worlds. His domain is Niflheim, rank 4 is Raglancid, rank 3 is Ezekiel, and it will continue to increase. Han then asked about Mobius. It's the universe created by Mobius, not the Mobius conglomerate. Reluctantly, Lae'zel told him it's the spiral universe, connecting thousands of parallel worlds. This answer helped Han partly understand the game more. That's why each account has different tasks, and there are no duplicate heroes. The third question was about whether Han wanted to know if he was really a player and if Tail intervened. Isel, before this question, for some reason had a very shocked face. Then she quickly disappeared, saying she was going to investigate the information, but who knows if she went to report to her boss or not. A few minutes later, Isel finally returned. She confirmed that Water was indeed a human and not being controlled. Han nodded in agreement, realizing there was no other option. However, if what Isel said was true, then the Master was truly in trouble, as not only he but the whole waiting room would face more challenges in the future. Nevertheless, every illness has a cure, and the most effective way in this case was to eliminate the hero that Water depended on the most, none other than Han Eslat. Just a few hours later, the Master logged back into the game. Everyone wondered what the task this time would be, if conquering floor 12 was too early. And as expected, the task was indeed to conquer floor 12. Han immediately went on strike, refusing to participate in the mission. Isel listened to Han's words with sweat dripping down her face, knowing that Han would be in trouble for this. On the other side, Jenna and the others were puzzled, wondering why Han would defy the Master's orders. Han explained that it depended on the situation. Either he would comply with the request or face punishment. But in short, Han Eslat would not be participating in this mission. Along with Han's resolute attitude, Aaron also refused the mission. Although Jenna and Volko were somewhat afraid of dying, they also declined. After all, the two of them would have a hard time completing the task on the 12th floor. At most, they would end up failing together. Thus, all 4 members of the first team refused the Master's order. What will Water do next? Just a few minutes after the first team's strike, the Master ordered the second team to carry out the mission. The 4 members of Edda's team were extremely surprised to see the first team still there, as they thought they had already gone on the mission. After learning that Han and the others had refused the order, Aedis felt it was too reckless. Don't heroes need to prove their worth to the Master to avoid becoming sacrificial pawns? Although she received a lengthy lecture from Han afterward, she still decided to move forward. To get stronger and follow orders is the best way to keep the team safe from danger. Just a few minutes after the second team entered the 12th floor, the alarm sounded, continuously signaling danger and panic among the team members. Although they managed to get out, the results were not very favorable, with Dika and Usher being seriously injured after the battle. As for Aedis, she had just stepped out of the gate when she immediately asked Han a question: how to resist the command. Team 2 also joined the strike. Everything turned really bad standing on the manager's position like Isel. The main team couldn't predict what Master would do in the future. Before returning, Han reminded everyone to practice as usual. Furthermore, the dungeon will be open continuously for 3 days, so go in there to find items. The next day, Han's team went into the dungeon and found an elemental fire stone. Of course, everyone kept training as usual. Han's swordsmanship and shield reached level 6. Han also had a special task for Evolka that she must learn the control spell. In addition, the casting time needed to be shortened. Several days passed without any sign of Water logging in. While Isel thought she would spend her life there, the announcement of the Master logging in again made her extremely happy. Nearby Aedis also thought he must have changed his mind. However, Han immediately objected. He guessed that the Master would not easily compromise like that. It was certainly what he thought. At the same time, Han's continuous thoughts were interrupted by the summoning of 3 heroes. All 3 heroes were at level 3 stars and cost the Master 1,500 gems, although they seemed not to like each other much. The girl believed the old man was too smelly to be near her, while the old man thought she was too arrogant. Only a boy named Stain remained calm in this situation. When he saw Han approaching, he ran to ask for help but was ignored. Eventually, he got angry and wanted to attack both of them with a sword, thinking they were already injured. Luckily, Isel arrived in time and ordered everyone to quickly climb the tower to conquer the 12th floor as instructed by the master. Han, seeing this scene, returned to his room to sleep, knowing the others would not come back. As he predicted, as soon as he lay down, he received notifications that the 3 members of Team 3 were attacking each other, one dead and one injured. They all failed the mission and left for the other world. Isel cried and Han comforted her, saying that if the master leaves the game, everything would be lost, and if he doesn't log in within 5 months, his account would be deleted automatically. However, Han reassured her that there was still over a year left in this world, so she shouldn't worry too much as everything will be fine. After comforting Isel, Han suddenly remembered something. If everything happened as Isel said, then how would Niflheim fare? If so, there wouldn't be much time left for him. The next day, the master logged in once again, this time using $90 to buy a package of 5,000 gems and 3 gift vouchers. Similar to last time, the 3 heroes received were also 3-star level, and they seemed different from the 3 foolish ones from yesterday. One of them saw Han standing and advanced to start trouble, but before his sword could touch Han, Adonis taught them a lesson. Although nothing special happened today, the master brought the 3 guys along with 2 other 3-star heroes into a team of 3. Their mission was to conquer level 12, and despite one person being severely injured, their team completed the test. A few days later, the 3-star youths began to roam the halls, bully and intimidate the weaker ones. However, it seems Han is still their strong opponent. Days passed, and although there were no wizards with the superior strength of the 3-star characters, they grew stronger, and Master Water's plan unfolded smoothly. These 3 also started to know about the Master's favoritism towards them, and began planning to overthrow the others. Levels 13 and 14 were quickly passed with this team. Han knew that if they truly passed level 15, his team would be eliminated. Ivolka also had similar thoughts. She asked Han, "Isn't this the time for you to do something? Those others are getting stronger every day. Someday, we will become sacrifices." However, Han did not answer, but instead asked about the teleportation spell requirement. It could be seen that Ivolka was very skilled with basic teleportation magic. Even the time for casting the spell was much shorter, although this physical form was a bit inadequate. The next morning, all heroes were gathered in the square. This time, as usual, the 3-member group was sent to conquer level 15 of the tower. While Han's group stood by to watch the situation, the result this time would determine the outcome of everything. Han warned the others that if the 3-member group succeeded, everyone must stop opposing the Master. If that happened, Master Water would regain confidence and Han would be the first to be eliminated. Whether the 3-member group succeeded or failed on level 15 was exactly a gamble. While 5 members of Team 3 were on a mission, everyone outside was anxiously awaiting the results, not only for the sake of those involved, but also because the fate of everyone depended on it. 5 minutes had passed without any updates, making Han a bit worried, as it was a sign that they hadn't encountered any danger yet. However, just seconds later, a message appeared that surprised him. All 5 members of Team 3 had sacrificed themselves at the same moment, indicating something terrible had indeed happened inside. Han was certain that level 15 was a special task, but that was not all. Immediately after, a tremor shook the entire waiting hall of the Teonia domain. Isel hastily explaining that the tremor was caused by their master throwing his phone, and he had also logged out as soon as the mission failed. Of course, this was expected as his $90 had just flown away, and Master Water had not logged in for a long time since that day. Isel the elf was the most concerned at this moment, truly worried that her beautiful body might disappear if this situation continued. Furthermore, those 1-star beings were soulless and spent their days only eating and drinking, with no one to care for them. Without a master and a leader, there was no longer any threat to the safety of the heroes, making them lazy. While lamenting his fate, suddenly a beam of light appeared that was none other than the moment Isel had been waiting for. Upon logging in for the first time after 10 days of absence, however, this moment was very brief. The master quickly took a screenshot and then exited the game. And of course, this login had a significance other than just a memory. Han saw the bloodless face of Glacial. No more words of encouragement, but Han already had a plan. This time, I need the help of that person, Isel. That night in Han's room, he inquired about Isel's internet access. It was known that Isel could access the internet, but to interfere with posts would result in punishment. A rough estimate was around an hour. Just browsing forums but sending messages or drafting would shorten the time significantly. Every piece of information was enough for Han. He asked Isel to let him access directly. Isel was a bit confused at this point, but there was no other way for Loki and for himself. Onward to the power of friendship. And so, moments later, Han had an impressive computer before him. This time he planned to access the Pick Me Up forum. Very quickly after that, what Han was looking for appeared. The cry for help post by Master Water. Just return the result, no explanation needed, nothing else. No useless quotation marks or punctuation unless necessary. Han looked at the mess of characters that Water uploaded with a bit of admiration for his good looks. However, looking at the comments, it was truly hopeless. Most of these comments were mocking him for his new way of playing. If I were insulted like this, I would delete the game right away, guys, haha. Basically, people guessed that the one handling this waiting room must have worked hard, and some even wondered by what power he managed to get through level 14, already having fun, maybe just a little more before ISO crashes, so Han quickly got down to business. He planned to send his cloud data post to whatever and help him with his gameplay. Minutes later, his post was successfully sent under the name Loki. Of course, the public couldn't help but be amazed and kept chatting continuously. Surely this Water guy must be someone important to get such enthusiastic idol support. Back on this side, right when the other file was successfully sent, ISO crashed along with a lifeless body. She wondered and asked Han, "What took you so long?" It turns out he sent Water a guide on how to play. Upon hearing this, she suddenly became alert. Isol immediately felt energized and wanted to have that treasure. Of course, there was nothing left for her. Even though it was just a rough note from Han on how to play, it spanned several books. What he was worried about now was whether Water would read it or not. If he really reads it, things will become more interesting. The next day, living up to everyone's expectations, Water logged back in. This time, the gift he brought to Han was the previous warhorse. However, the surprising thing was that Han willingly accepted it. Did he accidentally take some medicine? Oh, maybe it was because before sending the documents, Han had made some changes in it. That players must gift his favorite hero a warhorse statue twice or more in order to be accepted. So everything became clear. Water had read those documents and showed his determination. The next day, the team once again put on their armor. It was clear that their plan for battle had been canceled and they were ready to take on a new mission. In addition, Edis from Team 2 would temporarily be transferred to Team 1 until they passed level 15. This time, the whole team was moved to level 8 to check their formation. With a few lazy goblins here, the team quickly disposed of them. This time, it was mainly to check how far they had progressed. However, there is a person feeling very lost and confused here. Edis does not understand why Han called her into this group for what. Even so, Han knows that with someone as intelligent as Edis, she will quickly integrate with the whole team, and as for Ivolka, Han also has a plan for her. Soon afterwards, he dragged her away in desperate screams. This time the place they went to was the Magic Hall. Han wanted Ivolka to conduct research here. Isol also immediately appeared. Then she pointed to the table over there and instructed Ivolka that she just needed to solve the problems and put them in the container. After glancing through some research papers, Ivolka immediately recognized that these were the things she had studied at the Magic Academy. Of course, even though she didn't want to, redoing the work was unavoidable. Han wandered around looking for books without being able to read a word. Ivolka had to sit with a pile of research papers for hours. The worst thing was that this research consumed 10 gems per hour, and the master set 3 hours of research time for her every day. Looking at this expression, everyone can guess that Ivolka is extremely dissatisfied, but difficult things should be left to Han to worry about. Just with a fur coat, everything will be resolved just like the prediction. Things that cannot be solved by money can be solved by a lot of money, and this money belongs to the master. In the following days, there was a great change in whatever. He constantly took members into the dungeon daily to collect materials. Weapons were also crafted and upgraded regularly. The third team with new recruits was established. All of this shows that he has carefully read and followed Loki's instructions. Meanwhile, in the research room, Ivolka is considering persuading Han to learn her magic. She feels he is very intelligent, so he will learn quickly. Besides, there are many magic books here. Of course, Han has thought about this before as a 2-star hero. His extraordinary abilities are just the basics. From 3 stars onwards, heroes can choose their extraordinary abilities, and of course Han can become a mage knight, but he rejects Ivolka's offer for 2 reasons. Firstly, the hidden profession may not be strong enough. Secondly, her intentions are not very clear. Ivolka, are you asking me? Because you don't want to do research alone, right? Time passed quickly and the two of them were still immersed in the research in the study room, when suddenly a lightning strike from the sky signaled something. Research reaction, hero has reached level 1. Perhaps this was the result after many hours of hard work by Miss Ivolka. Han now asked her to open the status window and read aloud. A panel appeared in front of Ivolka, making her a bit surprised. Han explained, "This is your information in numerical form. The reason why Squad 3 was defeated on the 15th floor during the mission is because they couldn't see this system. In short, the research reaction of a hero is a system that helps heroes see their status information." As they stepped outside, a scene that was once in a lifetime caught Han's eye. Aaron was running away from what he believed to be a ghost. On the contrary, Jenna immediately recognized the system that Han had just mentioned.